sure that I'm looking at the same thing everybody else is going into this.
Okay, let's call to order meeting May 30th, 2019. Special meeting agenda, and the agenda is the fiscal 2020 budget. Can we do a roll call?
Commissioner Bessler,
Here.
Mayor Cos,
Here.
Commissioner DeHasa,
Present.
Commissioner Herbert,
Here.
Vice Mayor Magruder.
Here.
Okay, stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, Tracy, you want to lead us off?
Absolutely.
Maybe give us like an overview of
Yeah.
what we're going to accomplish. And then
Yes.
if anybody has any big general questions, if anybody has any big general questions, we can deal with them up front, so we don't bump into them later and have to come back and do something.
Okay. Do you want to open it up just for general public comment first, and then I'll do an overview of the budget?
I was thinking overview, public comment, then,
Okay, sure.
yeah.
Okay. So, as you can see from the materials that I gave you, I'm presenting a budget to you for FY '20 that has an overall increase of 13.73%. And although we have our regular costs for personnel that go up every year, and insurances and things that we don't really have control over that go up, our contractual obligations, the 13.73 is mainly due to a lot of capital costs that you're facing right now due to some maintenance that needs to happen in the town and some infrastructure upgrades. So that's the basic overview of what it is. I am the bearer of bad news, of course, because it's a 13% increase. But I feel that I need to lay the facts on the table for you so that you have all of the information that you need to make a good decision on your budget.
Do you know how much of the 13.73 is like benefits and pensions and healthcare with those dramatic increases?
Yeah, if you look at the charts that I gave you, it tells you the percentages for each one. So your personnel,
No, and roughly like if we had the 13.73, let's call it 14, there's 4% of that, packages that have to do with personnel.
if you look across your personnel lines for each of your departments, for just your wages
If you
and
don't know
things.
off the top of your head, then we'll just get to it.
No, I
when we
don't.
get to it.
Yeah,
Okay.
no.
Cool, public comment? Okay. Do any of the commissioners have any general questions? I have a couple.
Steve, do you want to go through this page by page so that,
I would prefer not to, but maybe we'll go through, because I know various commissioners probably have various things they want to discuss. Last time we skipped pages.
right, and that's the problem if you don't go page by page though. If you don't do it that way, then you're gonna get off track, and then I think your meeting's gonna last longer if you don't do it that way.
So we'll go
but-
page by page,
Yeah.
and then if a commissioner has something to say about that particular page.
Yes, that's
Okay.
what my recommendation would be, just so that you don't get lost and then end up with a longer meeting.
Right, okay, cool, appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I just had a couple questions before we start. The .01, or the penny sales tax, is
Mm-hmm.
that included in our $8 million budget?
Yes, it is.
It is already included.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and this does not, and one other question before we start. The fire hydrants, we kind of had to do that in an emergency fashion.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Is that something that can be pulled out of reserves? It sounds like something that kind of fits the
Well,
the category.
if you look at your overall budget, you're taking from reserves to fund your overall budget. So in essence, yes, you're taking it from reserves.
So we don't need to earmark that as part of reserves for this fiscal, in other words?
We
We're already
shouldn't-
starting the repair now.
Right, you already allocated $100,000 in this current year budget.
Right.
And we're hoping we do not have to take out of reserves. We're hoping that we're gonna be flush
really?
at the end of the year.
Excellent. Okay, super.
Well, you allocated, we voted 60, and
Well,
then you needed to add another 40 to it.
That's for FY '20. In the current fiscal year budget, you allocated $100,000 so that we could immediately fix some of the hydrants that needed to be fixed immediately.
So we're not gonna run out of money before this fiscal, that's what
No.
I'm getting at.
No, you should
Okay.
not.
No, but we won't be putting any monies back into reserve.
Right,
Right, but it wouldn't matter if we pull it out to do the fire hydrants.
I get it.
Yeah.
But
Okay,
Yeah, but also this budget only has 60 grand, and you're asking for 100 for the 2020 budget, so therefore,
Yeah.
we gotta add another 40,
correct. That is correct.
if we approve it.
Right.
okay, so I'm starting on, it's not numbered, but let's go with the summary. Do any commissioners have any questions on the summary? It's marked budget message and highlight summary. We good? I flipped one page, I'm flipping the second page. We're on to general fund number 001, revenues and expenditures. Does anybody have any comments on this?
That's more of an overall summary of your budget. So if you want to skip that page, you can go ahead.
Right, I would just make one note on that page,
Mm-hmm.
590.100, because the number rather shocked me. The 525 down bottom.
Mm-hmm.
When last year, if I understood you correctly, Tracy, that number was at around 260, so it's not that we've suddenly jumped 565. There's always this
That's-
pool of money.
This is taking to fund your capital. So that's what I was describing earlier in the meeting, that your capital expenditures are going way up this year due to the infrastructure needs and the maintenance.
But when
So-
somebody sees a 200 jump,
Right.
they notice it.
Where did you say 260? Oh, you mean 206 as a percentage, not 260
Yeah, but last
grand.
year, we, see, it's at 525, line 590.100.
Right.
Right, so it's at 525, which is a rather shocking number.
Oh, right, but it was 171 before that, right?
Yeah, actually,
The
it
year
was high.
before,
It was, I
Yeah.
thought it was 246.
it was 171 last year.
171.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, I did
Okay.
that now.
It was 218 the year prior to that. so,
218.
Yep.
Okay, I flipped the page to Town of Ocean Ridge, revenue summary by revenue type. Anybody have any questions, concerns? I'm flipping to summary by department. It's the pie chart. Any concerns?
I guess my question is, with all of these expenditures, is it at full staff? Even if we're not at full staff, is it allocated at full staff?
Yes, it's budgeting at
Okay.
full staff.
All right.
Well, except the transfer of, if you become town manager and the town clerk shuffling and all that stuff,
Yes,
right? That's not in
it's
this
based-
budget yet.
Right, correct.
Okay.
It's based on what is currently here right now. So it's budgeting my current salary as acting town manager and then Carla's current salary as deputy town clerk. So, but it's fully staffed, like I think what she was asking was, as far as the police department, even though we have some openings right now, and dispatchers and police officers, this budget is based on if we were fully staffed
It
in that
includes
area.
the open positions.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay, I flipped the page to expenditure summary by major category. Any questions? Flipping the page to department budget narrative. I hope everyone's written these numbers down, because they'll help us as we move along, right? The 8 million and all that, or maybe keep this sheet separate. Okay, I'm flipping the page to General Fund 001 Revenue Statement of Revenues. Questions?
I have one on, and I think I've already had this answer, but the utility service tax for water,
Which number?
it is 314,900.
Yeah.
Yes,
It is currently, the last year was 85 and this year is 85. But with all the problems that we're having with infrastructure, with the water and the hydrants and whatnot, that tax, where does that come from?
that's your water tax. So the city of Boynton collects your fees for water service, and we get a portion of that back, and that's what that is.
So Boynton is in charge of the amount of tax
Yes,
that is levied.
But can we not increase our municipal portion of that? I believe we can.
But right now, when we have problems, we pull it out of our capital funding, like water breaks and stuff.
I know, but I'm just saying, in a budget year like this, I think we need to look at all revenue sources and see, if the 4% that we're pulling out, does it cover our administrative, I mean, is it a wash? Does it cover it? Does it not cover it? I'm not advocating that it goes to 40% or something like that, but,
It just seemed to me that, you know, if we have any control over that without turning it over to Boynton, with the problems that we've had, we had 2 breaks this year, that require, you know, the FDOT to come in and fix the highways, we gotta fix the plumbing, so on and so forth. If we could bring that number up a little bit, it may help.
that number doesn't, I don't think that number reflects what you're talking about.
Right.
That number is based on residential usage. So it's- Yeah.
Right, but the
Right.
pipes and the breakage are in a different bucket, so to speak.
So are you almost saying create
But
a
it's
water
revenue
fund?
number.
Are you advocating maybe creating a water fund, not unlike Gulfstream did? They started to put aside monies that they have not yet spent yet to replace their water mains in the future.
But not from this tax, they did it.
Not from this tax, they did it separately. Is that what you're talking about, or no?
No, I'm just talking about an increase
Okay.
in the revenue numbers that can then be used to offset some of the other expenses, just like we use all the other revenue numbers.
Well, we're gonna be negotiating our water contract with Boynton this year, so we can have those discussions.
But then they'll take the money. But you're talking surcharge, right? Well, what, I guess we should just leave it with Tracy and the negotiation,
look at it.
realizing that
Just-
Don has this idea
Yes.
of a surcharge that only goes to Ocean Ridge.
Mhm.
Okay.
The next one I have is 329,600, the rental registrations. That's currently 2,500, and again, it's a revenue number. Could we bring that up to 2,750 or higher?
Rent, well, depending on what you set for your fees for a rental registration, so right now it's $35 per home. If you wanted to change your fee schedule and say, okay, now we're gonna charge $50 or $100 for you to rent your home and register with us, then we could up that.
I guess the question is there any interest in looking at that?
Interest? The problem you get into is with the people that own multis, apartments and things like that. They
And-
get touchy about this.
And again, it's such a small percentage of our budget.
So no appetite, okay? Anything else on that page, Don?
The other one was the 1.5% sale tax, 335,
Mm-hmm.
181.
Yes.
You reduced that to 145 just based on, it looks like, because you didn't make the 145
Yeah,
number
yeah,
last year.
yeah, it's based on our current collection
I
rate.
would recommend we just leave it at 145.
It's not gonna go down.
And
I agree.
tourism was up
Yeah.
8 million people, right? Yeah, it's not a bad idea. You understand what Don's saying there, Tracy?
Mm-hmm, of course.
Line 181. Okay.
So I had asked earlier in staff, at 322 dot 100, the building permits, the 450, because it's a significant increase from last year, and it was explained that, because of the backlog that we had. My question
Well,
is.
it's not only the backlog, though.
Help me.
The way I understand it is, there's other, which we'll get to deeper in the budget, because that's the very question, that sounded
Yeah.
crazy. Because we brought on a building official that was supposed to break even on cost.
Mhm.
But now they've taken items from other areas
Mhm.
and moved them into the building department. So that's why we have this job.
So my question to you, Wayne, is that $450,000 sustainable going forward, do you believe? Or is it just a one-year big windfall because we had the moratorium?
The moratorium was only a portion of it. Construction, as it stands, is booming across the county. So this is, for FY '20, none of the other municipalities are expecting a drop at this present time,
Okay.
so.
But, and the reason that I ask in terms of sustainability of revenue is a lot of what we're looking at of additional expenses are not just a one-year hit-off. They're gonna be for 3, 4, 5. So I just wanna make sure that as we, you can't factor in next year's to this year's, but you should at least be aware of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I'm flipping the page to general funds. Let's start, I'll start using the top number in the columns, 33800. Anybody got any discussion points? Tracy, where it says, for discussion, see fees for solid waste, we're gonna get to that towards the end of the package, so we don't need to discuss it now.
It's up to you.
Well,
However you
I
wanna
mean, we
do
have a
it.
whole packet back there that explains it, so we'll just wait till we get to it. You know, the sheet you have at the end?
Well, that's just capital. That's
But
capital.
I saw this in one of the sheets at the very end.
Yeah, you mentioned it, but don't you think we should do it now and put the numbers in if we can
Okay.
make the decision?
We've also got the Briny Breeze, we don't know where we are with that yet, Chief.
Right.
The Briny Breezes contract, or RFP has been let. We are in the process of putting that together. It is due to Briny Breezes by 11 a.m. June 13th. I will be working on that this week and the beginning of next week and reaching out to each of you individually, making sure that you see it in case you have any questions or any input that I may value.
So what happens if it goes positive before the end of our budget discussions, and
Yeah, we've got it.
we might have another couple hundred, might. Okay, Phil, set fees for solid waste? You wanted to
Oh,
discuss
that was
this?
my idea? Okay.
I was gonna wait till later.
Well, my question, I guess, is to Tracy, is we charge $231 now, right?
For a single family,
Right,
and then for multifamily, it's 180, 170 or something like that.
right, okay, so when did we set that fee? Like, how many years
That was
back
many
does it go?
years ago. It was
Right.
about 5 years ago. It's been solid for, yep.
Right, so I guess my suggestion is we update that number. Plus, we have a new contract, so we have costs, so we should factor all that in, the new costs plus, time value of money. Okay.
Okay, so do you know what you would want to set that rate at? It's 231 right now. What would you want that fee to be for garbage, for residential?
Before we go to that, it was my understanding that the multifamily had been somewhat subsidized by the single-family rate for a couple of years, to no fault of
Yes.
anybody's, so I
That's
think
be-
we first need to figure out what that multifamily rate is, so we know overall.
It won't be the case this time, though. The reason why it was subsidizing last time was because Republic Services was charging us the same rate for, no matter if you were a multifamily or a residential, single family. Now, they've split it up,
So
so,
those are Republic's numbers then?
yes.
Gotcha.
Well, just for discussion, since that 1.32, that's the increase over the 19 budgeted and what you've increased it for 2020?
Yes,
Well, that's just the revenue. This is the revenue side.
Yeah.
right.
Okay.
The expense side, I think,
Well, I
went
was
up.
trying to get at a similar percentages if we were going to raise the individual, the homeowners and I don't know if you looked at that or not.
Right, but I think we should look at the expense side to see what our
To see what-
expenses went up.
Yeah.
Right.
And then also probably go back to the original when the 231 was created, correct?
It was at least 4 years ago.
Right, if we go back to that number, what was our solid waste cost, and then compare it to what it is budgeted now, then take that difference as a percentage, times the 231, or whatever percentage times what Republic gave you as
Sure.
new numbers.
Okay.
The last 3 or 4 years, it's only been like a 1% increase, and, in
Based
past
on
history,
fuel.
we're not supposed to be making money off of what we bill, what we charge. Just like that, last year, right now, it's about $14 dollars a unit that they're billing. So for each house, we're being charged $168, we're charging the residents $231. So that $70 is.
Well, part of it's administrative costs though, too,
It
right?
is
We don't have
They
a,
send out 4
right.
mailings a
Yes.
year, and, yeah, they
Yeah,
do, and
right.
take in payments and all
and
that.
talking about it in front of a commission and
Yeah,
Yes.
dealing with the issues,
dealing with liens
Yeah.
and collections and all that kind of stuff,
right?
yeah.
So what's the upshot of this, Phil? You want the staff, because I was making like a to-do list, you want the staff to,
Right,
Look at the
determine
adjusted
what the cost
contract.
was when we set that fee
Yeah.
rate, and then what the costs are now, and do that as a
A
percentage increase.
Yep,
does that make sense, Gene?
Bring it back.
definitely, yeah.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we don't wanna be sitting here doing all this kind of calculations
No.
now.
I agree.
Okay, anything else on that page? All right, I flipped the page to 380.
Oh, I'm sorry, no, you're back, you're still in the revenue, right?
Yes.
No, interest earned,
Right.
If you remember, we changed over the banks and we upped the
361.
interest. Yes, 361.1. But there was a transition that took place. You know, we had to sign papers, and by the time we didn't get all the money in to the new bank, that gives us a lot better interest than we had on all the old banks, right?
Yes.
So if we just budget what we were last year, we don't have a full year in it, we only have
Correct.
a part year.
Yes.
So can we get a better number on that?
You can definitely up it. I was being very conservative to see where we would be, but I agree with you. We can definitely increase that line. And we can get a better percentage later.
Okay, so ask Tracy to come
Yep.
back.
Right.
with
Yep,
the
totally
number.
get it.
Okay. Now I'm done with that page.
Okay, next page is continuation, internal funding, there's a note from Tracy, internal funding source reserves. Do we want to discuss this now, or you want to wait till we get to our,
You should probably discuss that at the very, very end,
Yeah.
because as you make changes, that number's gonna fluctuate.
right?
Right, but I'd just like to
So-
say that, that's a big number to pull out of
is.
reserves
Well,
to
yeah,
plug the
but we-
budget, so.
It is, yes.
Right, but it's
We
not like
gotta-
it went from 0 to that, just so you're aware.
Well, pretty
You know,
much,
Well,
well,
but traditionally, this 200 flows back in.
Yeah,
correct.
traditionally, yes.
Okay.
But to that point, and it's just, it's a firm grasp of the obvious, I know, but rather than looking at pulling it all out of reserves, there's several other mechanisms that we can use, whether it is a state revolving fund loan that's interest-free, increasing the budget to 98.5% versus 97, doing.
We are at
We already,
98.
yeah,
did that
it already
already,
is.
yeah.
Spec-
year.
Maybe looking at special assessments for unusual costs like the fire hydrant and stuff like that. And then, you know, don't shoot me yet, but, you know, there's a percentage increase in millage that, you know, and I think looking at all those 5 different opportunities rather than just saying, you know, it's all coming out of reserves is something that we should keep an
Right.
open mind about.
I totally agree, and we'll discuss that at the end, and by the way,
Okay.
the special assessment thing is kind of an interesting idea. How long does it take to get a special assessment, do you know?
You have to make a decision very, very quickly on that, and you might be too late
No,
for
no,
this
just in
year.
general, is it a 1-month period, does it take 6 months, like to
Well,
implement?
you have to put that on the non-ad valorem assessment roll with the property appraiser, and they have deadlines for that. So we may have missed the deadline already for that for this year,
So you wouldn't catch it for a year anyway?
right?
Well, I don't, you know, and that's number one, confirm whether that's true, but that's always an opportunity for financing.
Yeah,
Now, the other issue though, and I was talking to the chief about it, is a lot of times this reserve came back to us because there were unfilled positions. And I think, was it last year, the one you told me was like 350,000, 346? And then we, oh, that's right, this last audit, so you had 346 of unfilled positions in the budget.
Overall police budget, so most of that was coming from salaries and benefits.
Right, but if you look at the, I don't know if you guys looked at the financial statement, because I know we were inundated with all kinds of papers, but I just at least looked at that one page. We only actually put in 165,000 back, which means if he gave us 346,
We used
and
it.
he wasn't included in our budget, we would have been in deficit of the 185. So
Right.
I think we gotta be careful of that, because he's almost fully staffed
Right.
now, so.
Definitely.
well, one other thing on the reserve, Phil, we've swollen to, was it 4.1 million? The current reserve we have? In other words, it's-
4.8.
Oh, it keeps going up.
4.8,
Yeah.
Yeah, we're at a dramatic high. This is like, I think, an all-time high.
Well, it always is, we always put a little bit in
Right,
every
but I
year,
mean,
usually.
the actual fund now that's been growing is now reached the highest percentage in.
It's
probably
at 60% right now, which is what the auditors tell you should maintain is 60%.
I thought we were 61.8 or something,
We're at 60%.
60 even,
Yeah.
okay. Okay, I'm flipping to mill rate variations. Is this something we should just understand, because then we'll discuss it at the end?
Yeah,
Christine?
discuss at the end,
Christine?
yeah. Skip.
Okay. Department budget narrative. Yeah, this is what I was asking about, Tracy.
Okay.
But we don't have any hard numbers on this at this time, right?
On the commission?
On what,
No,
Steve?
did I?
You're on town commission?
No, I'm
It's a little
wrong.
paragraph.
I'm wrong.
Okay.
So,
So-
could you just explain to me about this huge increase in
Yeah,
workman's compensation?
so what we did was we reformulated how we calculate and distribute the costs for workers' compensation insurance and general liability insurance. And we calculated that based on how many employees are in each department and then what the risks are for each department. So this went up just because of a recalculation and distribution between departments. It's not that much of an increase in the insurance premiums. It's just a recalc.
But now, we're not paying that kind of, I mean, we're the commission, right? The $6,000 is the five of us, that's what we get paid, right?
This is what we pay the insurance company for workers' comp. That's just
For
your
us?
portion. That's your portion of it.
So
if you
you're
look at the
saying
total-
we almost make as much on workman's comp as we do getting paid? We only get paid $6,000. Isn't workman's comp gonna be
Well,
replacing if we,
It's not based on, it's not based on salary. It's based on the premium,
oh,
so.
per employee?
Yes, correct. Yes.
If you fall, it's the same as Carla falling.
No matter how much they pay.
So I'm better injured than working? Save the flight money anyway.
Don't go there.
Careful what you wish for.
Okay. Flipping again. Town manager. Do you have any discussion? I'm now flipping to the next page.
Well, I had a question. Why do you not have access to the town vehicle to attend workshops and conferences?
Well, we have a minimal amount of vehicles, and right now, where we have the two lieutenants, who are kind of sharing a vehicle, and then we have also, the building official's car that was transferred from the police department to the building official. There's really no vehicles left over now for any of the admin staff.
Okay.
Because if I took a vehicle to a conference, then the building official would be without a vehicle to do his job,
Gotcha.
so,
Okay, it was just a question.
yeah, that's the difference.
But you get expense for the,
Yeah, it's in travel and per diem.
okay, Department 512.102, which is the back page where we were just talking about. Any questions on that sheet? Okay. Budget detailed worksheet, town manager's department. Tracy, you wanna tell us anything here, or?
No, it's pretty self-explanatory. It just breaks down everything for you. You didn't have all of the breakdown last year, so this year I kind of wanted to show you exactly what was involved in each line in your budget, so you're getting more detail.
This is, I want to compliment Tracy on this compared to where we've been for the last 2 years going through this budget. I mean, this was like reading the dictionary, but the explanations and whatnot are just.
This is great, this kind of page is great.
This works.
I don't know if everyone, oh, you can see it, good.
Tracy, I noticed when you had subscriptions, memberships, and education, I didn't see League of Cities travel there, or the District 4 meetings, which you'll be going to, and the CRP meetings, which you may be going to. I didn't see
Yeah.
those in here, and I didn't know whether you needed to put any
Yeah.
funding in there for that or not.
Typically, I absorb some of the cost myself. I just bear the cost instead of charging the town for some of that, and
Well,
some
if
of the
you go
times
to the
too.
District 4
Well,
functions, they're
and-
$20 a shot.
Right, oh, well, I know, but I pay for that out of my own pocket most of the time. And then, as far as the travel goes, sometimes I ride with a commissioner or someone, so I'm not charging the town for that, so.
Okay.
I
Well,
still
did
don't
wanna
think you
make
should be
note that
going
they-
out of
they were-
pocket for your lunch, though.
Yeah, I wanted to make note that
And it's
they
one
were
thing if we
listed.
want to eat crummy hamburgers for $20.
Okay, town clerk and treasurer, any comments from the town manager, town clerk, or treasurer on this sheet? We're good? Okay, and now the backup material. Any commissioners have any comments? Okay, I'm flipping to Tracy's wonderful chart.
So my question is, town clerk and treasurer, where does Kathy fall in? What?
Kathy's
her
the,
salary?
Kathy's the assistant town clerk.
So she's she's baked into these numbers too?
Yes, she is.
Okay. So this is actually three salaried people, okay.
Okay. All right, I'm flipping to the second sheet of that same chart. Oh, by the way, see the little asterisk down there? I know somebody was mentioning the swell. You'll see this kind of throughout here, the move to the department. Yeah.
Yeah, I put notes on there every time we had like an increase or a movement. I gave you the note to tell you exactly what happened.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, department budget narrative, legal services. So I had a broad-reaching question on this page. I don't know how many commissioners get calls from citizens like during a week, but most of my calls have to do with the Architectural Review Board, threats of lawsuits. They weren't allowed to do this, they weren't allowed to do that. So is that causing an increase, and who do we ask this of? Perhaps Wayne and Tracy? In other words, I want to make sure that as we've created this Architectural Review Committee, remember when we created it, which was just extremely recently, we said, we'll see how it works and then adjust. So this might be one of those adjusting things. We want to make sure we haven't created a monster that is causing us problems. I guess you're the best person to answer that.
Yeah,
No.
I don't, I just get the atypical, I wanna do it my way.
Oh, yeah.
So
Absolutely.
you get a little bit of pushback with that. That's really all there is to it.
Nothing new and different and crazy.
No,
We've only got a month in, I mean,
Yeah, we just started.
Right, okay,
yeah, we're okay.
okay.
Yeah.
That was my
We'll know
question.
soon enough.
I'm not against the Architecture Review Committee, I just
Right,
know
right.
that I got,
Yeah.
a lot of angry people.
Haven't met yet under that rule. The last
Yeah, they
meeting
did.
was not under that rule.
Gotta come to the
yes, it was.
Yes,
Martin,
they did.
Martin, can you come to the,
public
Yes,
comment.
thank you.
Well, let's put it this way, they
Don't wanna go on
acted as
hill,
if they were under.
Martin Michel, 5 England. Yeah, they have not, the last meeting that they had was not even part of that new rule that was out yet, so
I think it
there was,
No, it's
No, not
completely
yet.
gone.
It was,
Second
you're
reading.
absolutely right.
Yes,
There
second
was-
reading
Oh,
will
they
be on
had a
Monday.
second
this,
reading.
it's this meeting that's
Exactly right.
coming.
It's not infected, it's still on the.
They were
rule.
acting as
Right.
if it had
Yes,
been.
correct.
Okay.
It was very
Yeah, they
positive.
mentioned it had.
No, it was not very positive.
It was.
It was a horribly negative.
It was half and half.
But it worked. It worked very
Half of it
My
was
positively.
understanding,
extremely
there were a lot of
positive.
swears, eruptions, it was a.
That was one participant, one.
Right.
Oh, yeah, that was just one.
One
Yeah.
particular owner was not prepared.
The rest was
Yeah.
fine, I thought.
The owner was not prepared, his architect was not there.
Correct.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The building
Correct.
guy was not, I mean, they were just not prepared.
There were
Right,
issues.
the other one, well.
The process worked exactly like we'd hoped.
We'll see.
So I had an overall thought with legal services, and it's not gonna change our budget number. Is there the opportunity, because we're doing a lot of drafting of ordinances, we're doing a lot of, the charter change is already done, but we're doing a lot of stuff, from the P and Z side and changes in the code to make sure that, we're codifying what we already have and making sure there's no things. And it's probably more a question to Brian, is there an opportunity within his firm to have a junior attorney do some of these initial drafts and do some of this researching to try to bring some of this cost down? Because we're kind of at the threshold level, if we continue to go where we are, that it might make more sense to have an in-house counsel. I don't have an appetite to do that, but we're getting to that number that it's, I don't know. So I think it's just more a blanket statement and maybe something to, to discuss directly with Brian, but
But on the
Definitely ask
legal
him.
contract, is it per hour of any lawyer in the firm? Do you know?
Yeah,
the breakdown.
it's $195 for legal services. I don't think it breaks it down further than that. I know the town engineer's contract does. You have a fee for the senior corporate officer, and then it goes down from there. But I think the legal services, it's $195 per hour.
But that might be something to ask for.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's a good point. Maybe we could talk to Brian about that.
Yeah, we will.
Most times the clerks will be charged the same because it's still the legal guy who's looking over it, their head attorney.
Right.
Well,
Would be worth asking.
3 hours of a clerk and
Right.
30 minutes of an attorney is different than 3
Sounds
hours
like
and 30
about a
minutes of
legal bill,
attorney.
Definitely ask him.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, I'm flipping the page. To appointed boards, anybody got any questions, comments? This seems pretty simple.
I didn't see how much of an increase there was, I guess in the second paragraph. Budget,
It's insurance.
out of the general government or building department budgets, and then I just didn't see where it said how much of an increase in the narrative.
For the appointed boards,
Mm-hmm,
it's .31. It's very, very minimal.
very minimal.
Yep.
.31, okay.
Yes.
that's right.
Okay, general government, IT communications. Anybody got any questions on the text page before we swing to the backup? Don, looks like you got something written there, that's good.
I do, but I'm gonna flip the page.
Okay. Okay, I flipped the page, 519.106. Anybody got anything here? Okay, budget detail worksheet, 519.106. Which, at the end of the day, we're okay on. It's a non-event, right?
Nickels and dimes,
Yeah.
the shredding services for one service is 2,500, and we're gonna take it to two services and 32, so I couldn't figure the math in that one.
So the shredding services is not just for the public, it's for the public, and we also have shredding services for the town. So it's divvied up between, to have the service come in here to do the resident shredding is about $700 each time.
Okay,
So if we,
So
it was
that's-
700, next year if we do two, it will be 14.
okay, and then the rest is.
And the rest is town shredding.
A little too late to ask, but does Republic ever do anything like this? Is that part of their services that they could provide to us?
I don't believe so, but I can ask Joanne.
Okay, just a question.
Just right then.
Sorry, nickels and dimes, somebody,
No problem.
somebody said, what, billionaire, billionaire? Is it?
Okay, public safety, law enforcement and fire EMS, 3.5% increase due mostly to the salary and benefits increase. We just finished our negotiations last year. Are there any surprises in here, Chief or Tracy?
No.
Chief, it still says in here up to 5% increase. Are we doing steps? Are we still doing merits? And
So the
We're doing merits.
collective bargaining agreement that you reached last year had a 3% fixed for this fiscal year.
right,
And up to 5% for each of the consecutive 2 years, based upon their evaluation.
okay.
This one was satisfactory evaluation, 3%. Next year is up to 5% based upon their evaluation score. The year after was negotiated at up to 5% based upon their evaluation score. So, no, we have not gone back to a step. We almost got there in this year, but not for the next two.
Okay, moving on, public safety. Department.
I got one question. The 19, almost 20% increase on retirement contributions, is that per state FSR increases?
That is correct. The FRS increases their percentages every year.
Mhm.
So they went from 24.5 to 25 point something
Okay.
this year
The
for
basic-
special risk. And then our, actually,
I think the state bases their rates upon the actuarial from the prior.
they
2
do,
years.
yes.
And so depending upon interest rates and an assorted number of other things that they look at actuary, it's blanket for the state, not just us. So
Okay.
sometimes we are lucky, we went down to 19 one year and then shot back up, obviously,
Right.
so it's out of our control.
So then as your salaries increase, then the percentages and the totals go up.
So I had one further question under machinery and equipment, which is 506.400. we're going from 149 last year budgeted to 22,400 this
Right.
year. What does that 22,400 include?
Okay, so.
Which line you on? 504 what?
400.
If you go, Christine, if you turn to your detail sheet,
Uh-huh.
it'll tell you exactly that machinery and equipment line.
Replace external.
It has 2 desktop computers, 2
Gotcha.
laptop computers, 2 chairs for the dispatchers, 12 AED units, and that's it.
That's it for this year in that particular. item.
Right,
We
that's it.
transferred the vehicles to capital
Correct.
out of the regular budget.
Okay, so there is still vehicles, it's just
It's
not
in your
showing it.
capital, correct. So the
Why
the
would the
previous
shift be
town
made to
manager,
capital?
the previous town manager put the cars in a machinery and equipment line
Mhm.
instead of having that as a capital expenditure, but that really is a capital expenditure of
Because
the
it's
town.
depreciable?
Yes,
Gotcha.
Okay,
so I moved it.
Here, I put pages one at a time, you're doing like both, so I'm backtracking now. To 501,400. Overtime, you really think overtime's gonna go up?
So we've held overtime at $75,000 for several years. With
Yeah.
the increase in salaries, increase in overtime, it is a projection.
Yeah.
I hope that we do not need to expend that much overtime. However, based upon our history, it is likely if we have a storm this year, we will overexpend that.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, I'm flipping 3 sheets ahead to where Christine is, which is 506.40. And now I'm flipping the page to the text page.
I first had a question. How much do we expend on prisoner food?
Tell me what,
I've got a bag here of stuff that I brought in.
You wanna donate?
I'd be happy to donate.
So it's petty cash, prisoner food, advertisements, investigative funds, and events, etc.
It just proves that I read the budget, that's all.
Yes.
That's it.
Petty cash, we try never to spend. Ads, we try and do as minimal as we can because they're extremely expensive, and the town clerk and the acting town manager are extremely angry when I give her those large bills. Investigative funds, it depends upon what kind of investigations we have. Sometimes we have to pay for subpoenas. Events is the largest portion of this, which is coffee with a cop. Anything that we do in the evening, we're gonna try and do something for the Civic Ready blowout. And prisoner food, no, we do try and starve them, but the law says, if we have someone in here that we need to interview and we need to keep them here for more than 4 hours, we are obligated to feed them. We generally do not go to Prime Catch.
Okay.
We generally go to places like McDonald's. But it's an absolute necessity because it's mandated that we have some way to pay for that.
I really wasn't looking for an explanation, I just thought it was funny.
You asked, you got it.
I got it.
If you wish to do as you did when we had the water main break, we will call you and you can
I
bring
would be
something you're
happy to.
happy.
Feed the prisoners, yes.
Okay, I've switched building and inspection services, the text pages, 2 text pages. I have a question on, 2 questions here. They added the cost of a professional planner. Is this the Kilroy? Or what's this professional planner? 'Cause I
The
thought we had-
professional planner is Corey O'Gorman, who, from Place Planning and Design, who you put in place to go over things, like the zoning review and everything for the concept plan review applications. Now, this is a pass-through cost, so
pass-through?
it's a
Okay, it's a
pass-through,
pass-through
it's
cost.
totally
Okay, then I see.
pass-through, because when somebody applies for that, they're paying for zoning services.
Gotcha. Fine, as long as it's passed through. Okay, so my bigger question's on this, the second text sheet. 257% increase in the building department
Yes.
from 134 to 480. Now, Tracy, you explained to me that that jump is caused because a lot of items that used to not be on the building department have been put into the building department. So
That's correct.
here's my question, which I don't believe you'd be able to answer, but perhaps you could put it on your to-do list. How much of a decrease, a quantified decrease in the other departments is there? So we can then compare that to the 480. You see what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Okay, so I'll write that down as decrease in departments towards Building department?
I'll do a breakdown sheet for you.
Thank you.
And I'd like to say this is something that we talked about, 2 years ago, we were trying to go through the budget and reorganize some of the categories where they fit better into
Yes.
departments and whatnot.
Yes.
Could not get it done
Right.
until this time.
Well, yeah,
So-
you understand what.
Yeah, I
we're trying
understand
to
your question, I'm just
Yeah.
saying, we've been trying to get this budget organized so that we have it into more into departments, and it was just really scattered all over the place. So this is a good step,
do. Okay, I've now.
even though it's very expensive, Wayne.
Yes. I was gonna say,
No, that's what I want to see, if it's a break, if it's actually a break even.
and, and to Commissioner Magruder, that was a perfect setup.
Yeah.
The note that I had written at the very bottom, and I was a bit blurry-eyed when I was finally getting to this page, is what can be trimmed. So I just challenge you to sharpen a pencil somewhere along the way.
We can already trim about 20,000 from this because we have been going through and looking at different softwares for the building department. We estimated 50,000 for that, but we've been looking at companies and doing demos and things like that, and we think we can come in at like 30,000, so.
That
you're
was
gonna
very
get
quick,
20,000
thank you.
trimmed.
So I've turned to the sheets now. Oh, you've already gone through the cheat sheets. Okay.
I want to take that 50
Well, I
down
just
to
was
30.
amazed, the building permits have gone up basically $80,000, and it says a scanning cost, but it's a pass-through.
It's a pass-through, yes. We
That's
charge
a
for
lot
it.
of scanning costs. Wow.
Are we playing catch-up, or is,
No, that's cost. We don't make money on that, right? It's a cost.
No, it's a pass-through, yeah.
Wow.
do we have an
Okay.
in-house scanner or no?
No, we have to send them out.
Yeah, it costs.
So we collect the money through the building permit process, and then we send it out. And that revenue pays for it, pays for the bill.
Okay, I just don't know if there's a tipping point that it would make more sense to lease our own scanner and,
Charge?
yeah.
Then you have to maintain. Have you gone down to Delray,
Blue,
Big
yeah.
Blueprint?
Yeah,
You also have.
You would need
time
staff to,
that we would
yeah,
have to
to
have
gotcha,
to
yeah.
that.
never mind.
It's a big to-do.
Run.
Okay, I've turned to budget detail worksheet, Tracy's summary, and I'm on page 1, now I flip to page 2. Now I flip to page 3 with the asterisks. Any questions, comments?
One question, the building code books, an annual subscription? Is
Where
that-
are you, where?
Is that for our own code books?
Yes, it's for the building code, so the Florida Building Code, there are several different books. We have electrical, plumbing, all of the books, and it's a huge library of books.
It's only in effect when they change, the cycle changes every 3 years, so it's coming right due in this fiscal year. You won't see that big item for another 2 more years.
And in today's environment, nothing like this is online?
You get electronic, you're still paying for it.
Okay. All right.
What about
But
the
take 50%
laptop,
off.
the laptop for hurricane assessments? That's gotta be like a separate laptop, or you?
Well,
you need
it's a
lap-
laptop, it's a capital expense this time around, because we just don't have one. We have no laptops for damage assessment or anything, or any portability.
How do you do
I
damage
mean, they
assessment?
could, if they had to, they could borrow a laptop from us to do that, but then we wouldn't have it if we needed it, so.
Okay, so you gotta take it
Depending
with you,
upon,
you're saying.
depending
Right.
upon what the needs of, which I didn't realize that they were buying a specific laptop just for that purpose. Depending upon what the requirements are for that laptop, we may already have one in-house.
Just give some money right there.
Yeah.
Thank you.
There will be Windows 7, not
This
Windows
is
10.
residential.
But couldn't you also use a laptop for other things, like when you go into a home inspection, you go into this, that? and the other?
Definitely.
And
So the guy who came to do my gutters the other day had an iPad and he was drawing the house.
Depending
Exactly.
upon what the software
The software.
requirements are for it,
From
we
it.
may be able to pull that 2,000 down to 0 and get him some
Cool.
software instead.
that'd be great.
So you make a little note of that, Tracy?
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Or Wayne?
That's great.
Chief,
Okay.
how many laptops do you have that we could repurpose?
Now we're getting.
I'm thinking now.
Okay, now you know I don't
Recycle.
throw anything out right away. Because we don't dispose of anything right away in anticipation that something may break and we would have the ability to go backwards, there are probably 3 serviceable laptops that I would put out in the field. The others have reached far past the end of their life and been beat up. But some of the administrative laptops that we've obviously passed on to your department and taken from movement of attorneys and things like that have a very good life expectancy left, we can repurpose if that's the desire Wayne wants to do, no problem.
Okay.
That'd be great.
Super. Okay, I've turned the page to Department Solid Waste and Recycling Services.
We already talked about that.
Right.
Yeah.
So Tracy's gonna talk about, maybe that's one of our items from
Yeah.
previous. Okay, I'm on to other physical, environment and town engineer. Text page, I have no notes on this. Anybody got any questions? Lisa's here. We good? Okay. I'm switching to Tracy's budget sheets. I just flipped it. I'm now on Public Works.
Whoa, I'm sorry, I
Yep.
spoke too soon. On the budget detail worksheet, under other physical environment,
Right.
right,
503-100?
503-100, professional services. Last year, we had allocated $12,000 for a vulnerability study. Was that spent or not spent?
No, it was not spent, so
No.
that's went into the reserves.
That's this current fiscal year that you're talking about right now. It has not been spent yet.
This is the GIS layer map, Lisa? Sea level vulnerability and GIS?
I don't know why those two are together.
Right, because it was the GIS map we was doing.
GIS is different than a vulnerability study.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
So,
Where are
those
you?
are two different tasks.
Yes,
But the 12,000 was for the GIS, if I remember correctly, right?
it was a vulnerability, that was part of,
That, yes, but the GIS is different from the vulnerability.
Right.
Vulnerability is later on in the budgeting.
So have you
Right,
started?
so-
GIS is a program,
Right.
Right.
it is a program
Yeah.
that we use, that staff uses for us to be more efficient. It's a way to take the map and put information on the map.
Like utility grids and other.
Yeah, so like when we needed to know where the water lines are, we would click that theme on, incorporate it on top of an aerial so you could see where all the water mains are, the valves and the T's and the fire hydrants. Or if
So-
you wanna know where signs are, the inventory of signs, you click the signs on.
So
it.
is this a labor cost or is this an annual cost for the GIS
This
service?
is a catch-up cost if I'm,
That's what I thought.
Well, is there another line item for GIS?
Yeah, so last year, the previous town manager had lumped it together under sea level vulnerability and GIS mapping
that's-
layers.
That's
You can
right.
see in 503-100, if you look down into 503-120, this year I separated it and I put a 0 under sea level vulnerability, and then I put a different category for GIS consulting and mapping layers and funded that.
Right, that makes sense.
Okay.
again, that's part of this, moving this stuff into the right category.
Right.
yep.
Okay, so we good, Christine?
Yeah, I just didn't want anybody to think we spent $12,000 last year and we're gonna do the exact
No, we
same
did
thing
not.
at $15,000 this year.
Public Works?
Well, I have a question on the 503-400. The iguanas, how are they doing? Are they mostly dead or
Very
are we
well,
still
they're
have a problem?
crossing the road out here early.
So.
Is
the-
it working? It just,
The last time that I spoke with Tom, he had, I don't wanna say, I don't wanna say the word, but he had
from the
removed
area.
100 or more of iguanas from just the public areas. Now, I tried to reach out to him yesterday and again today, and he didn't call me back, so I don't know how many residential properties have signed on to having him removed from residential areas, but they had removed quite a lot from public.
But,
now is that getting away from the residential areas? Does anybody live
Well,
near a lot of iguanas?
the people that had
So do you see
iguana
less now that they're doing it?
Do you?
I think residents have taken it into their own responsibility. That's what's
I
happening.
think it was a dual prong. I think,
Right.
Yeah.
I think one, you can't have one without the other.
Right.
I mean, together they make a whole. But yes, I think people became a lot more aware. And when we opened up, open season, it helped too.
I think people felt, comfortable.
I've
Do
seen
your
quite a
part, yeah,
few of
go
their,
forward.
the patrol cars circulating through the neighborhoods too, quite
Mm-hmm.
frequently.
Oh, you have?
The Iguana Patrol?
I
Yes.
haven't seen it.
They
I've
are
seen 'em on
here-
many
They are
occasions.
here on a regular and frequent basis.
Oh,
They
yeah.
check in twice with us every time they come.
Okay.
And I see them considerably, in the south end and the north end every day, almost, depending on what's going on, so.
Abby's sons actually drew a picture of him the other day and delivered it to my house.
With Pat in the background with a rifle?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so I'm on to Public
Okay.
Works. Everybody okay with?
Well, the other thing is that we're putting in, when you combine in that 503, 400 other contractual services, as storm drain, maintenance, the televac, the barnacle busters, and the red valves, we're increased those three by $21,000, so hopefully that will
Have an impact.
catch us up on some of this preventative maintenance that we've been
Right.
lacking.
Yes.
Okay, Public Works. Public Works planning a 38% increase, and you mentioned fire hydrants, Tracy, right?
Yes.
In this sweep of town that the chief has done with the Public Works Department, does that include a maintenance sweep, or is that just a pass-fail sweep?
We did a pass-fail sweep. We did some emergency quick repairs and fixes on a considerable amount of those that we found that were not working. Since then, Line Tech has been contracted by the town to come in and do a phase one of repair or replace some of the most critical and damaged ones that you
Yeah.
wouldn't even be able to turn on. They're working on that today, as a matter of fact, they're working on some.
They replaced two
The-
hydrants today.
Maintenance person, Billy, and Lieutenant Jones went through some initial training on flow testing. So Billy Armstrong, and I'll use first names because that's what you guys know him by, sorry. So Billy has begun doing what he can on a daily basis to do some flow testing on all of these. So far, every hydrant, I think he's probably up to about 6 or 8 now. Every hydrant that he's been able to flow test that we got to work has worked properly and met the flow. Once they're all done and repaired, we will begin that maintenance process, which the maintenance process will be cleaning, rust checks, repainting, and preparing them, sandblast them, grind them, whatever we need to do to get them so that they will last us for another 100 years.
Yep.
And that will then become a continual maintenance process every year on a cycle. I believe the plan is with the new maintenance person coming on,
Correct.
he can dedicate a considerable amount of time to getting us, just like the storm drains, up to speed, and then we will
Maintain.
have,
So-
Wayne will probably.
Excellent.
What prompted this question was, we allocated 100,000 to replace or repair, and then we got this 38% is increased maintenance. It's two separate budget items?
Well, you
Or
have,
is some of the 100 in here?
you have, okay, so you have 100 in your current fiscal year budget that we're spending right now.
Right.
Then we have asked for 100,000 in FY '20. You've already funded 60 of that. We've increased the number to 100, so we're gonna ask you for another 40. The other line item that you have in the regular budget, not the capital, is for hydrant and water line maintenance, and what that usually is spent mostly on is if we have a water line break. We take money from that line item and we fix the water main break.
Okay, so back to this 38.87, because I'm not getting it. So the $200,000 is for hardware, so to speak, and for the labor to put in the hardware?
Yes.
And most of this increase is to maintain either repaired hydrants or ones that are in need of repair?
Yes.
To maintain it?
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. All right, I flipped to the actual budget sheet, 541113. Actually, I should say version 1. Anybody got any questions on sheet 1? Okay, to Tracy's summary. Any questions on that? Just flip to Tracy's page 2. Okay, personnel or human resources. Okay,
What is the timing, because this is a critical piece, what is the timing that we would have to make the decision on town manager versus acting town manager for this budget cycle?
Oh, well, it depends, you know, if you decided that you wanted to go out for hiring another manager, then it would take months to have that advertisement out on the streets, gathering the applications in, doing your interview processes and all that, so,
If you're asking, what is the commission's deadline to decide whether they wish to include a town clerk and a town manager separately at fully budgeted amounts, that would be your last budget hearing? Because barring that, you wouldn't want to change your budget.
well, no, you wanna present to your public, you wanna make your decision by August at the very, very latest, because you wanna present to the public the town commission's budget for the first budget hearing, and you don't wanna change that unless there's input from the public saying, we don't want this service, or we want to include this. So you wanna have a decision by August.
I think your question is for budgeting purposes only, okay?
Correct.
We need to know, for number purposes only, if there is a consideration to go fully outside, then you probably need to budget it so you have the money to do it next fiscal year.
Right.
If your decision is to keep it as is, then the way it's presented is perfectly fine.
So it should be,
Does that make sense?
August is your deadline to make changes
Yeah.
to the budget numbers.
Right, but I think there's a secondary question. Because the 6-month period is up in October, right?
Yes.
So I think maybe what Christine's getting at is, let's say in October, if we decide in October that we want to go outside, then we start a process that'll take another 3 months.
And you could do that if you wanted to. You just have to make sure you budget properly for it, is what the thing is, yeah.
Okay. So perhaps at the June meeting, in the discussion, maybe at the June meeting, because it's like a.
Monday?
Monday?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe we could have a little discussion at the end and see what our feelings are at this point. That sound like okay or not? Christine, your friend?
I just,
Too early?
I think it is.
Too early, all right. Okay, I flipped to the second text. Now I'm on to the actual sheets, HR salary calculations.
Can't read it.
Okay,
Yeah, it's
And a
tiny.
magnifying glass.
I went to Tracy's sheets, which breaks it down
I forgot to send the reading glasses with the
No.
magnets.
for the elementary school people. So it's, I mean, I don't see anything that's, right, it's insurance liability.
The only statement I'd like to make, can we get totals, I mean, on this, or, like, you don't have the total for the current actual rate of 19, you just have the totals for the 20, you know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah,
So-
sure, I can pull it from the,
Yeah,
yeah,
okay.
I can do a side by side for you.
Thanks.
What do you want to call that, Tracy? What Phil just asked for?
He wants a comparison of the FY19 to the FY20 personnel totals.
Okay. If flip to the next sheet after, with the yellow line through it. This is a salary survey for county administrators and finance staff. Probably premature for us to get into this now. Do we agree? Okay, I'm flipping to Palm Beach County Building Departments. I flipped through that.
The only thing I wanted to point out to that, and this is in no way a denigration to the move that we made, because I think it was very smart. I just wanted to point out that it looks like all kind of like municipalities do not have building departments.
So they contract out, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we tried that.
Some
I know
of
we tried
them,
that.
some of them don't have police, some of them do, you know, it
Yeah.
all depends on the.
But I think probably more to our kudos that I think a lot more people will start to follow our lead on something like that.
Chief,
Does your, and I'm gonna ask this question because I see something here that's blank that I know the municipality does have a building department. do your salary survey for building official as an example, since I'm on that page.
Yes.
Does the fact that it's blank mean that they don't have it, or they may not
No.
have responded?
Some
to
of it
us?
is because they have not responded to requests for information.
Mhm.
But yeah, but you're right, some of them are contracted out, so.
I flipped to police departments, which we just finished doing during labor negotiations. And now I'm on contingency. And Tracy, maybe you want to say a few words here.
Okay, so your contingency budget, if you're looking strictly at the contingency line item, we increased it by $25,000, and that is $50,000 for emergency contingency in case we have hurricanes. And really, typically, we spend more than $50,000 if we're gonna have a hurricane. We spend more than that. We spent $100,000 for the last hurricane. 75 is general contingency. That's for things that come up during the year, such as this year, we had an emergency of 100,000 for fire hydrants, and we also hired Lisa's firm to go ahead and do the sewer conversion study for us. That was 25,000. So things like that come out of this contingency line.
Would that A1A break in front of Melnick's come out of this, or no?
Typically, yes. If you're gonna have a water main break that is very expensive like that, then yes, it would come out of contingency, because, the little water main breaks, we only budget typically $30,000, and that goes for, like, say you have 10 water breaks during the year, it's gonna come out of that.
And where are we with that one, just as a side note, in terms of cost, expenses?
The one by, which one, Melnick's, or?
Melnick's.
But-
They're planning for pre-construction next week. On Tuesday, there's a pre-construction meeting for Melnick's. So
We-
that's planning to be mobilized pretty soon.
The street construction on?
Pre,
for Melvin?
Pre-construction, pre-construction for the road.
and what are we estimating overall that rate?
That one is gonna cost, to do the mill and overlay, that one is gonna be 90,000.
90?
And does that
Yeah, it's already in the budget.
I know, but I'm trying to get an idea, because, I mean, we're not having just one every 5 years, we're having 2 a year type thing, so I'm just trying to figure
Don't we
out.
have others that have only cost 30,000?
Correct.
Right, so I guess it depends on the break.
So the one by the inlet, it's as smooth as butter when you drive over it. I mean, is that gonna need another mill work or no?
Yes.
Yeah, that's DOT standard. The good news on that one, because everybody mobilized so quickly and all the resources were put into effect, we don't have a speed bump over there.
And kudos to Wayne Cameron,
Well,
because he
and
was
the police
on that
department.
so quickly.
There were, everybody was out there and really pooled resources, and that's what we do, as a group. So kudos to everybody for what they've done, but because of that, the repair on that one is significantly less than the Melnick one. So that's what it's gonna
Is it
look like.
standard operating procedure?
DOT,
To do it twice? You gotta-
DOT wants you to mill and overlay 50 feet on either side from wherever there's a break.
There's a possibility that
Is
you
it-
don't have to do it twice, however, it would require that we have a contractor
Yes.
on hand, contracted, ready to go for emergency repairs on
Should be.
on a contingency basis, where we're paying them a contractual fee annually, so that we could call them and say, we need you to come do this. If we left open that night, people would be driving over it, the next day they would
Exactly.
come and do that whole thing at one time with DOT's approval.
Haven't been done.
It's kind of a pay me now or pay me later scenario, it doesn't save us a lot of money.
Well, if we continue to have more and more,
Yeah.
there might be a threshold that we.
Well, can Lisa, you
Lisa?
Also,
seem
I
to,
just wanna say, it was kind of an anomaly to have two in A1A in 1 year. Breaks like that.
and
That
A1A
was a
just
big break in
costs
front of
more.
Melnick.
Yeah, it was huge.
a big break, I mean, that doesn't happen very often.
Did they figure out the cause of it?
Melnick.
But to have two in a DOT right of way is, I don't, do you guys remember having two in the?
There's been heavy construction trucks around Melnick's for the last few years, so
Well, and you know
Yeah.
what, that's, that's a thought too,
That's right.
because there's
It's
so
right
much
at the
more
intersection, so
construction.
all the
and
construction, they come right
Using
in.
A1A?
Using A1A and all of the roads for that matter,
Exactly.
because the economy is so strong.
That's why I was going to the revenue
Quite a few
side.
parties too.
Yeah, so, but to have two on A1As, I don't even recall that even happening in one fiscal year.
Okay.
Hopefully that won't happen next year, you'll remind me, but make that statement.
I don't know if hopefully he's gonna get you there, but anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, we set on this page and flip it to the next page, okay. Right, capital fund.
No, I'm sorry. How much in fiscal 19 did we spend of our contingency fund of 50? It's gone, right?
We're, pretty much, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It will be gone by the time we finish all that paving and, yeah.
Proposed capital budget allocates $525,000 for engineering infrastructure improvements, machinery and equipment. So on this, just for everyone in the public that's here, there's, what is it, 25 items? So we just go through each individual item?
Yeah, if you wanna flip to the actual spreadsheet for the capital items, there are items highlighted in yellow, and those items have not been discussed by the town commission yet.
Is this FY20 capital items?
Yes.
The second, third, what's about the
That,
fifth
you
one?
have it right there, Steve.
Okay.
That's the
So let me
page we're
pull
on now.
that out and
So,
then hold it next to the
But-
items that we
But,
have in
but
text.
again, the 20 items, now that we've seen the totality of what we're looking at, I would prefer rather
Revisit?
than only go through the yellow ones to,
revisit them all?
Oh, absolutely.
Sure.
Yeah, but we should have this sheet beside it, you know what I mean, that's what I'm suggesting, just for
Gotcha.
organizational standpoint. Okay, and Lisa is here, which is a good thing, because number one is the Wilbright Detention Area Maintenance Project, $20,000. We've already approved that into the 2020 budget. Whenever we see this, there's not money hanging over from this year that's
No,
already being used.
no, this is proposed and the town commission approved it, but you can change your mind, you don't have to approve it.
But this is something we can't change our minds on, right?
Well, you can.
You can.
Well,
But it is a high priority.
Yeah.
you're
It is a
telling
high
us.
priority.
we can.
I thought the point was that that was a need of clearing out the lines underneath, because we just pushed
Well,
the,
we did spend, a lot of time, a lot of effort, and a lot of money just recently.
How much?
I don't.
Over 20?
I don't know exactly how much, but I think between cleaning, this was prior to, this was when Jamie was the manager.
Okay.
Cleaning out the under drains, which you don't have to do. We
Every
just
year?
did that.
Okay.
The replantings and
Eradicating
everything.
the exotics,
Right.
we did a big push on that. That still needs to be done on a maintenance standpoint, but not as big as we did it before. The only thing that, maybe this next fiscal year is maybe tilling up some of the soils and doing some more planting and eradicating, but not anything, in my opinion, anything additional.
well, is that $20,000 worth what you're describing, or are you suggesting we're in such good shape?
Lisa, can I ask you to come to the mic, because when people listen to this afterward, they won't be able to hear you.
Okay, sorry.
That's okay.
Is this the 20,000 in addition to?
This is 20,000, yes. This is meant for tilling and trenching, as
Trenching?
we had talked about.
Okay.
Mhm.
I don't think it's gonna cost this much for next fiscal year, because I think we spent
Currently, right.
this fiscal year coming up. I think we might be able to come lower than that. We
Okay.
have monies in the budget for maintenance of the system as it is.
Right, but this was
So
meant
this
just for
was
the
meant for
tilling.
the tilling of the dirt and a little more upkeep than we've done in the past.
Right.
So-
But we could, hopefully we can come under this number. Like, this
So
is
who
pretty conservative.
physically does this upkeep that we're talking about? Is it like,
You have to hire a firm to do this.
and is a $5,000 a reasonable number to do that? Because we don't want the thing to go downhill.
Right.
No, and the 5,000 is for the regular maintenance every year. I mean, we need to keep doing the regular
Well,
maintenance.
that was Lisa's
But that's
question.
not part of this number, right?
Right, correct.
Right, so that needs to stay, because
Right.
that's typical
Exactly.
maintenance.
Right.
But if this 20 can turn to 10,
Right.
we can
Or
start
less.
squeezing, yeah, or can start squeezing the apple, it'd be appreciated, that's all we're saying.
Yeah,
How about this, we're not gonna hold your feet to the fire for a number today, but just know that maybe if we could figure that out.
What-
We would have to get
What I would,
quotes.
what I would like
Yeah.
to say, and what I think Tracy has tried to recognize, is that we have done a horrible job of the past number of years of doing maintenance that we should be doing ongoing.
Yes.
And this budget recognizes that error. And you gotta pay the piper sometime. So this is catch up for what we haven't done in the past and putting the money in place to do what we should be doing or should have been doing in the past on an annual basis. So
Yes.
if that 20,000 ends up being 15, then we didn't spend 20. But we have it in the budget if it does cost 20, and so on and so forth. And I can't stress that enough. I mean, those are the problems that we've been running into on Spanish River, we've been running into them on the detention pond. Everywhere else, we've not done what we needed to do when we needed to do it. And so then it becomes a crisis and it costs us more money.
Right.
And
but,
so.
but the
Except-
good
except
news
that
is the
everything's
detention
here.
area, we've done a lot.
Yeah.
We
You have to
have
admit,
to.
we've done a lot on the
Up to
detention
speed.
area.
Right, we are.
And so, the,
But we don't
the
need to go
detention area
down.
is working,
Yes, it is.
and so,
Except for the fact that now we have tidal water coming in or pushing up because of the rising seas, but it seems to be handling that fine. I mean, you and I have looked at that a number
so
of times.
we could try to see if we can get some
Should we just
costs for to do a little tilling and smoothing out of the elevations, because we do see some
Well,
channeling of water.
Where did the 20,000 estimate come from to begin with that we voted on and approved? It came from you, correct?
I don't think so.
Yes.
Yeah, probably, yes,
Okay.
probably.
So now
I
you're
mean,
saying
over,
that that may be a little too high.
well,
Now,
because now we have, the under drains are
All
clear.
right, we're up to snuff.
So that's great news. So we don't have to touch the undersurface infrastructure at all. The system appears to be working fine. We have money set aside for eradicating the exotics. We did spend extra money in plantings. We could put more plantings in. That's a
well, if we do the-
cost.
If we do the tilling at
Then-
the northeast end to landscape it down so that it goes more towards the drain, when you do that tilling, you're gonna have
Have
to
to put in
replant
some more
the
plantings.
plants.
Right, but we won't retill everything, because that's correct. Then you'll be
You're just gonna do
removing the
that-
plants.
That northeast side.
So Dawn, what we will do, we'll put this item on hold, and what we'll do is we'll get quotes, and we'll bring the
I'm all
quotes,
for that.
yes, to the next meeting,
Yeah.
so we'll
Much
have,
rather deal with
yes.
the actuals than,
Right.
let's reduce it. and
Right.
Right,
Reduce it too much or put too much
Right.
in.
Okay.
Right.
but that's all, this is good news.
Yeah.
that-
Yeah.
And thank you for the maintenance that you've done in
Yeah.
the past year to bring us up to speed.
Okay.
Okay, number 2, storm drain maintenance, outfall repairs at 150. Yep, you're back up. This is including the Spanish River situation, Tracy? Or is it separate?
Some of the Spanish
Well-
River items are being taken care of in this current fiscal year, but yes, there are still some on Spanish River that will need to be taken care of next year.
And so is it under number 2? I can't remember if Spanish River was deeper in here as well.
This corresponds with the map you
Yes,
did?
it does.
Yeah, so this is an increase of $25,000, right, is what we're saying? Okay, so again, we've been a little bit more diligent than we've been in the past. And we're finding that those, especially the outfall pipes, have been extremely more challenging as we get towards the end of being very proactive on our stormwater system. So this is is an ask of $25,000. That's what this is.
Is this the discussion we had at the last meeting?
Yes.
Yeah, I think so.
The encroachment had destroyed the system and it needed,
Yes.
Right, so there's a
Right.
few, there's several outfall pipes that have, no easements. There are several outfall pipes that do have easements, but are inundated with vegetation and encroachments like walls and fences that now have are the end of doing major repair, but they're expensive. And so, the one on Spanish River, nobody even wants to give us a price to remove the encroachments within that 10-foot easement, because the ficus hedge, the fence, the walls, the illegal pipes,
Are the homeowners, interested in doing it themselves?
well,
We're
we
not
have to.
sure yet. The
We're not
letters
sure
went
yet.
out, and we haven't heard back yet.
Well,
So that's really what this is based off of. I mean, it's an extra $25,000, and so it's really a commission,
so we
obviously.
had this
decision.
discussion over several minutes at our last meeting. And I mean, Spanish River is, the lack of maintenance in town has caused this issue at Spanish River. So we have a solution that's gonna cost us $150,000 to a system that hasn't been maintained at all through whatever reason.
Well,
and then
we don't
the
usually
neighbors-
maintain on people's private property.
Right.
So, can we be more diligent then to review our easements? Probably.
But that's a separate
Definitely.
meeting. Right. So my point is that I don't see any way to reduce this figure, Christine, that's my point.
I didn't ask for a
Yeah.
Okay, so we can move on, all right. Thank you. Fire hydrants is not you.
No, except I did do a write-up on the fire hydrants to just be more proactive at the last budget hearing. So we did this sweep, which is great, and now you're gonna be up to speed with the fire hydrants that you have, but just to be proactive, you have 150-something fire hydrants, and so just understand that you need to put monies aside, because you're gonna be replacing them over time proactively, instead of coming to you reactively and say, oh my gosh, we have fire hydrants that are not working.
Yeah.
I think this is all gonna work out now, because staff has done a fabulous job reacting to the situation and getting everything repaired. So now we're moving forward, trying to be more proactive. So that we don't come to you and say, well, we gotta take money out of contingency because we have this
Right.
challenge with these fire hydrants. So we don't wanna come back to you and say anything anymore, that it'll just be a program that we can switch them out over time,
But we
or
did-
repair them.
No, you got
No, I was just gonna say, I think the question is though, is it 60 or 100? Because in this
Right,
budget
that's what it
now,
comes
it's
down to.
60.
Right.
So we have to
Right.
decide.
well, I mean,
It was
Right.
30 at one point in time.
but
The-
fire
the-
hydrants that don't work
Don,
have
the
to be fixed. They
30
don't-
the
I don't
30
see
in our
you
reg-
have a
30
decision maker.
after that, once we get up to spec, correct?
The
Is what
30 in our regular budget is to maintain the hydrants and the water line. So anytime we get a water break, one of the small ones, we have to fix that. So we're almost overexpended on just the water breaks. So that takes care of the 30. This is for the hydrants only. So, and we estimated that we're gonna need up to 100,000 more to get back up to speed in FY '20. And then the year after that, FY '21,
We'll worry about it.
it'll decrease
Right. It
should be better
tremendously.
because
This
we'll
is
be
more of
caught
a,
up.
this is
Right.
more of a
But I don't
capital
even
plan
think this-
over time, a 10-year capital improvement plan that you had asked us to look at
So I
over
don't wanna
time.
be rude, but I don't even know if this is a discussion point, really. I mean, we got fire hydrants
Well, you
that
have
don't
to, you
work.
have to come to a consensus,
Right, we just
on the
discussed it
price.
before. Right.
So now I'll introduce yet a third leg of the stool. Would this be a type of capital improvement line item this year and going forward, if the timing worked out correctly, to be a special assessment that we could use as a non-ad valorem tax?
I don't know how you would do a special assessment on it though, because special assessments are for particular areas. So if you have, Spanish River, the residents
No,
there
I'm
who
talking
have
hydrants.
flooding. Right, but the hydrants are town-wide. So you would essentially be doing a special assessment on every resident, because
For
so
hydrants,
that's not how it usually works on a special assessment. Special assessment is usually for a particular area in town that you're taking care of. So you're assessing only those residents in that area.
Okay, then I'm probably not using the right word. When Gulfstream went to do their utility undergrounding, they did a non-ad valorem. And that was added to their
Right.
everybody's taxes, and you got the choice to pay it off early or pay it over the next 10, 15, 20 years, whatever they chose. So what would that be
So
considered?
it's not gonna, so it's a non-ad valorem is what it's called.
Okay.
But you're gonna get it from one place or the other. You're either gonna get it by taking out of your reserves, or you're gonna get it by your tax, your millage, essentially. So either take it out of reserves or raise the millage to take care of it, but it's not gonna make a difference. If you raise your millage, you're gonna be taxing the property owners. If you do a non ad valorem, you're doing the same exact thing.
But
It's just on a different line.
what I understood with a non-ad valorem, it could be based on a equitable distribution between all taxpayers
That's
versus
correct.
a value.
That is correct,
Correct.
yes.
So in my opinion, hydrants is a shared cost equitably
Yes, correct.
for all residents, and should probably potentially be paid for in that fashion.
Okay, that is correct, you're right on that. Now, the problem is, we might be too late to get our ad valorem assessments into the property appraiser, but I can check on that.
there's
Maybe
a-
I misunderstood, but are you saying that if there's 1,000, homes, we divide the number by 1,000 and everybody pays that? So it's not based on the
Yes.
value?
Correct.
Okay, so if somebody that has a $50 million house, shouldn't they pay a little bit more for that hydrant than somebody next door to them with $1 million house? Because aren't they protecting the house? And doesn't somebody with a $50 million
life
house
and
have a little
limb.
bit? I'm sorry, what?
I said life and limb, I would think the fire hydrants are kind of an expectation of preservation of everything. I know what you're saying there about lifting the price.
Well, I
but
just
would
think some of the
equity.
people that don't have as much money in this town, it's gonna be a lot of money to them.
So we can look at,
Yeah, we
it
got
under,
fixed income
under
people
revenues, we had passed that line item that said utilities. There's a utility fee under revenues for water. That's based on usage, which might be more equitable.
I went
We
back
need to
that with
see,
my
we,
initial-
But you can't have.
no, we need to,
Surcharge.
we could see if there is an ability to increase that utility tax
You can increase the utility tax potentially to.
under the,
Absorb
underwater.
You can increase
So
the
we need to-
utility tax
we-
to pay for a needed improvement involving water?
Yes,
But you
because
can't
it's,
make money off the citizens paying the tax.
well, we can certainly show you
Okay.
that what we're paying for
Okay.
water and fire
So-
hydrants.
so
You know
can-
that there was a line item that says utility tax in here, and,
Right.
So that's the third way to cut it,
That's a-
versus your
yeah.
property valuation versus
So-
equal distribution, it's based
So
on your
in two-
usage of water.
Yeah, so there's your third.
So
one.
if you use more water, you pay more for the hydrants than I do.
Okay.
Right.
So there's
Similar.
two separate parts of this. Number one, we need 100,000, which we gotta approve. And
Right.
number
Check.
two,
We have to agree
the
on it.
staff is gonna
We'll check
figure
on
out how to
that.
fund that through tax assessment, whatever.
Ad
right?
valorem.
Because
or
I
Several
can
utility
tell
tax
you that in
increase.
my town, we increased our utility tax to ourselves, up to 10%. And I think that's, from my recollection, when I was on the dais, you can only go up so high, and I think it was 10%. And we did it temporarily because we're undergrounding our utilities right now. So, so we can check on that to see if we can, increase the rates by usage so that we can get more money in return on the revenue side to pay for the fire hydrants and other things that have to do with potable water.
I
It's
think
a
it kind of
thought.
gets
Good
back to
idea.
your point, because if you're using 50,000 gallons and somebody is using 5,000, chances are you've got a really big piece of property and they may not.
Yeah,
So,
it
I mean,
comes
you're
out to
kinda-
the
you're
I
kinda
guess,
getting
but
to
I
the
just
same
see
way.
$150 to a fixed income person, a lot of money, where $1,000 to somebody who owns a $50 million house is like.
That's like
who
three
cares?
options we have there, right?
Right.
I'm
Right.
Looking, so let's look at them.
So can we move through number three? Do we agree we're gonna spend 100,000 as it's written here to take care of the immediate repairs and or replacement needs of town? I mean, we just have to do it. So do we agree to spend the 100,000?
I
I
agree.
do.
And then Tracy and the staff and Lisa are gonna figure out a funding, an alternative funding.
Yes.
And if we can't figure out an alternative funding, we'll have to deal with it.
Yeah, we have choices.
Woolbright and Tropical Pump Station Pump Replacement for $20,000 repairs. Is this Lisa again? My God.
Do you need to go through all of them, though?
Again?
Why
Just
don't we
the-
just, instead of
the high
having her go
priority.
through
Yeah.
these again, I mean, we've already gone through them once. If you have a question or a concern on each item, or if you don't, can we skip it? Since we've already
Yeah,
done them?
Go to the high priority or they're on hold for discussion.
Well, just go through the line and say,
Don't
Do
We
you-
haven't discussed this, did we?
yeah, you
Yeah.
discussed it at length at your last
This,
meeting.
this was, these were all
Yes.
discussed
Yes,
at
yes,
the
yes.
last meeting
Right.
with more backup
Right.
from
Okay, so
before.
everybody in
Right.
the commission
Yeah.
agrees.
No,
Leave
unless
this
you have a
alone.
question, right? You're saying.
Right.
My question is, are all 20 of these something that we said were high priority off the last discussion? Or 25, 26 of them?
The
No, we had
No.
some
Because at
low.
some points, we had high, medium, and then we
Right,
said
so-
take the lows
We're
off.
still
It's
here.
on.
Right, so
Yeah.
it's still
Yeah.
on there, so priority, the high ones are at the beginning there, 1 through
So-
13 are high priority.
Which we've discussed.
Okay, so
Okay.
we're all set on the number 4. Is that what, we don't have any issues there? We've approved it, it's a high priority. Okay,
And
I'm
this will be,
flipping,
this will be an ongoing 5-year, part of the 5-year plan.
I'm moving on to number
Yes.
5. Let's see how it's marked on our sheet.
Okay?
Yeah, this is the same, we've already
Yep,
discussed it,
right,
yeah.
discussed it.
So we're okay on number 5. Anybody can speak up that disagrees with anything. Number 6, Public Works Machinery and Equipment, Town Commission approved it.
Yep.
Okay, we're okay. Number 7, Public Works Utility Beds and Lights. Town Commission approved it. Public Works Tool,
What's the
Fine,
difference
tools.
between those two? Machinery and equipment and tools, just the size of them? Is that
Yes,
what you
the
think?
tools are more like hand tools, and then your other one is
Okay. We had
equipment
specifics
rentals,
for
shelves,
hydrants.
racks,
Right.
hoses, adapters, things like that.
Okay.
Tropical Pump Station,
Had that conversation.
I mean, we have to have it working. Number 10, Camera System for Pump Station. Do we really need this? We worried about theft on the,
No, it's not
no,
about
it's not
theft,
that.
it's about,
Looking at the inside.
Yeah, what's
when
happening?
staff is not here, because obviously Public Works doesn't work 24 hours a day, we need to have a camera system so that
When the
Public
alarms
Works
go
can
off, at least
assess
see
the
what's going on.
situation.
so it's part, all right.
From
so
afar.
Part
We're
of
okay
Pump.
with that,
It's part of it.
fine. Door replacement for Town Hall. I thought this was a hurricane or ADA. It's not even a question mark. We just gotta do it.
Right.
Right,
Is it hurricane?
It's both.
yeah.
It's hurricane impact doors need to be there, which ADA compliant, and fire egress requirements. So all
Okay.
3, by whatever doors that being
They hit
used
'em
have
all.
to meet those criteria.
Okay. Until they get replaced, can we at least just wash them? It just bothers me every time I walk through that door.
The Mr. Clean Scrubby, have you used that? That's serious.
Yeah,
The white
no,
thing.
it's wonderful.
amazing.
The magic eraser?
Yeah.
I bring candy, you clean the door.
Yeah. By the way, it'll clean your white sneakers as well.
Does everything.
All-terrain vehicle to replace,
I,
it's $7,000.
I get it. It's less than 3 years old.
I believe it's over 3, going on to 4. Average lifespan is 3. The 2016
So-
Honda it was to replace, it won't be replaced until 2020.
You want to approve it, and then when we get the final cuts, revisit? Because the point is, we have population pressures coming into here. So far, we've seemed to have, we're ahead of the curve, let's put it that way.
And it's trade-in, right? We get a trade-in?
We will attempt to trade the Honda that we currently have for the new ATV that we would get and hopefully save some money. We did well last time by doing that for the Polaris. It depends upon the market, obviously, and the condition.
Right.
Christine?
I just, at some point, we keep looking at a lot of deferred maintenance, and this might be within that category also, but we've got a lot of other things that I think are really important.
So it's, should we let it through the first round? Do you agree to that?
So,
And
so
then-
I've suggested this, that we will not spend your money unless we need to.
Okay.
However, if we don't budget for something, then we can't
Can't spend.
purchase it, unless it's an emergency. And unfortunately, the demands that are put on us for beach patrol, our history here shows that having two all-terrain vehicles available for patrol is the best for the town, because oftentimes we send them for repair and they're out for 3 or 4 weeks at a time. It's because they're not a normal automobile, they have to go to a specialty dealer. We don't have good luck in getting a quick turnaround. They're exposed to extremely harsh environments, and I would recommend including it in your budget. If we need it, we need it. If we can get by with another year, that's fine. We'll return the money to the reserves like we do with anything else that we don't spend. I'm not comfortable not having that or that patrol car in the budget this year. I'm not. That's my
Can you have
opinion.
one or the other?
I'm not comfortable not having that patrol car or that ATV in the budget this year.
That was no?
We've done well through some other means to get us to the point where I think we are cutting back on capital equipment expenditures for the police department as much as we can right now, to be honest with you.
You good?
I've said my piece.
How about you're okay? All
I've
right.
said my piece.
Okay, body worn camera systems. I'm not a fan, as you know.
I would prefer this than a new vehicle or something else. I think it is a safety measure for the residents, and I think plays a dual purpose as a safety measure for the officers. And we just talked about, we're ahead of the curve now in terms of a lot of additional growth and coming with it potential
I think it destroys the
intrusion
community
over.
police, but I don't want to rehash the argument. So is this something we need to just vote on? And that'll be outvoted and we can move on?
Where do we go, Tracy?
You definitely need to vote on it, one way or the other.
We already
I don't know if
debated
you want to
this.
hear from your public.
Public? I know Jerry came up and said he liked them last meeting. Anybody dislike them? Oh, good.
I didn't say that. It's a possibility, okay. I have lived in a different world with all that stuff and recorded to death. There was no trust in the police, okay, because they were getting, how do you say, I can't think of the word in English. They were getting paid off, you know, by third parties, et cetera, okay. We are recorded to death in this country already on the phone with phone companies. I record them too because I don't trust them, okay? Everybody records you, okay? For our security, they tell you, okay? Which is a pile of you know what, okay? I really think that if, you know, there are pros and cons about this, okay? I'm not totally opposed. I think that some of us, I'm not talking only about myself, will not engage in a regular conversation with a police officer, you know? We used, in the past years, I've been here 28 years, which I can't believe, but in past years, the officers in general knew your name, okay? I'm not too sure that we're in this situation now. Knew your name and would say hello, or you would greet them. If you saw a parked police officer, he would pull down his window and say hello. We went through a period that they weren't doing that, okay? Late at night, because my husband and I saw that. You know, he stopped coming back home one night, saw a police officer, he knew them all, wanted to say hello, how are you doing, and not asking anything else. The window didn't go down, and we didn't get a hello. You know, this town used to be more friendly, and I think that if we do this, we won't be able to have a normal conversation with a police officer because everybody will know we're being recorded, so we have to be careful what we say. You know, I don't like to be confrontational at all. You know, if we disagree, we don't have to shout at each other. I think it's gonna change the, how do you say, the, what's the word?
The dynamic between the community.
Yeah.
I agree.
But as you know, how many of us residents are here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, well, 6, you know. This, you know, the majority don't even show up. Are the majority of residents aware that this is a possibility that we will have? I don't know what most of them are thinking. I only know of, you know, a handful of people.
I think that's a good point.
So I don't know what I don't know what the real solution is. You know, attacking a police officer is an outrage. Attacking a resident by the police is an outrage. Whether, you know, if the person is drugged out or you know, or has committed a big crime in town or whatever, that's different. You know, it should be. We're a small town. We're not a high crime area. You know, the police chief may know better. We're not Boynton, Del Rey, or, you know, any other Riviera Beach or whatever. And we need more civility, and I'm not too sure we're going to get it with police. You know, I'm all for the protection of residents and police officers. No abuse on either side. I know that for example, I talked to my son who lives in Houston, and I said, if you get, you know, pulled over, don't get, how do you say, confrontational with a police officer, because that doesn't go anywhere, you know? But he's 39, I'm not sure he's listening to his mother, right?
Yep, I understand.
We don't need to be confrontational. You know, I say hello to whatever officer comes down Adams Road, which I rarely see. I'm not there standing watching for the police to come and greet me. You know, that's not the point. I think there's a balance here, and what's best for both sides.
Yeah.
Who has been attacking the police, I mean, that we know of?
Gotcha. Thank you, Christine.
You know?
Appreciate your
Thank you.
words.
Okay.
Can
Chief,
I make a clarification? There seems to be an assumption that the body worn camera program will be on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and that the officer will have it turned on every waking moment that he's here. And that is not the intent. The intent is to have the evidence and the record of calls for service and things like that. I don't believe that anybody in the police department, nor myself especially, have the intent that we are going to be recording our residents when we say hello in the morning on Old Ocean. A call for service, a traffic stop, an investigation, a call for service. Yes, there are guidelines that we must follow as law enforcement on where and when we can record and whether we have to announce it or not. We don't record on first aid calls. We don't record in specific situations where they're infirmed and people under certain care. Those are all covered statutorily. The idea of this is not to record each other 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And as Ms. Schulte said, she's very observant. We're being recorded every day, all of the time, almost everywhere you go. Please do not go shopping if you don't wish to be recorded. This is merely a tool for us to use to collect evidence, to control that evidence, because certainly anyone can record you if they're out in the public, including a law enforcement officer. You have the right to record them with your cell phone. We see it all the time. We know we're being recorded all the time. This has been brought to us by some of our residents as well as some of our officers, and it was a request.
Can I ask you 2 questions? If you push a button on your phone, you're policing, you push a button, does the camera automatically go on, or you have to push a button to turn the camera on?
You're saying if we had a body worn camera,
Right.
would you have to activate it manually? It depends upon the body worn camera. Some of them come on automatically when they're activated by blue lights and sirens. They're designed to do that. Some of them can be, we can purchase a system that allows it to be activated every time that your weapon is unholstered.
So,
They are all able to be manually activated. It would be the guidelines that are presented by us and to when they are mandatory to be used that would become important. And it would be on a call for service, on a traffic stop, on those things that we generally would get complaints that the officer was rude, the officer mistreated me, there was some type of physical resistance by a person, or there was an unnecessary use of force by an officer. And I'm not gonna say that doesn't happen, because we see it every day. That's what we're reserving. I think it protects the town and it protects the officer. If the officer is not doing anything wrong, it protects them. If the officer is doing something wrong, it protects you.
and can a citizen ask the officer to turn the camera off?
If it is on a call for service, no, I would not.
No.
No.
If you're walking in the street and the policeman stops to say hello to talk to you and your dog, can you say, please don't record?
You can, but
Okay.
I don't anticipate that they're going to be anyway.
Okay.
That's not the purpose
So-
of the body worn cameras.
So it sounds like what we need to know is which kind of camera you intend to buy, because that lessens the impact on the community if it only goes on.
So I proposed a $48,000 camera system with a $12,000 a year upcharge. It is the best system that I can find on the market. It does the preservation and upload of the system. It can tell when they're on and off. It can tell when they were manually turned off. So if
No, I'm
the
not
idea is
interested in
that-
all that, Chief. I'm interested in a system how does the system turn on? You seem to say there's various systems.
So we can
You know.
purchase a system that interfaces with our blue light system in our cars. So every time the blue lights go on, that officer's camera or anything in that area that's a camera automatically activates. So your officer, your primary officer, your backup officers, they come up, it turns on by radio frequency and tells that you need to be on. And in addition to that, there are other things that we can purchase, which I hadn't considered up until this point. There are any number of ways. There are camera systems out there that can allow a supervisor to randomly turn them on. I don't recommend that. That's,
No, I think.
seems to be an invasion of
What I'm
privacy.
getting at is the minimal time the camera's on, not, and how can that technology?
Minimal time the camera's on is if, and my anticipation is this, if you're going to conduct an enforcement action or if you're conducting a call for service, the minute you get the call and you start to respond to that call for service, your camera should be activated because it will show your driving pattern, it will show all kinds
Right,
of
but
things that
will
we get
that be
involved in.
activated?
Once you get there and you have cleared the call, you will turn that, camera will be
Manually.
turned off manually.
So you're talking manual turn-ons, but you also, at the beginning of it, it could be triggered by a radio call, it could be
Right.
triggered by.
Depends
other-
upon what
Blue light,
what system we can get.
holster.
Right.
So I'm gonna vote no on this, I know you guys, it seems to be a majority gonna go yes, but perhaps we should have the chief give us the different.
Again,
Well, can I,
Yes,
say something first?
Please.
I'm not saying it's a good idea or a bad idea, but if you look at this budget, we're pulling an awful lot of money out of reserves. And I think it's gonna be worse when we progress through the system, because I think when the town manager gets them with the right numbers and the salary survey, we're just going up. There's nothing that looks like we're going down. So to add another 20 grand doesn't seem like a lot of money, but when you're adding it on top of something north of 700 grand, because we're at like 680 now already, I just don't think the citizens are gonna enjoy that, either, how do we do it? We either raise taxes or raise other fees that in effect take money out of their pocket, or we ask Cal and Tracy to go back and sharpen their pencils, but it looks like they're gonna say they've done the best job they can now. Or just do a combination of all, but I think it's all bad news. This is a tough budget, and it's only gonna get worse. You wanna add another 20 grand to make it even harder for us to do it?
Let's have.
And then it's more than 20 grand, it's what, 60 grand when you go over a 5-year period?
Martin Michalik. I would suggest that you look at the body worn cameras from a different perspective, entirely different perspective. We are being recorded. There's no doubt about that. We're being recorded when we drive into town. There's cameras right when you drive into town. So being recorded or not recorded, I think makes no huge difference to anybody anymore at this point. The body-worn camera system what it does is it basically takes it gives you a legal opportunity of fighting something before it goes into a court system. Because you can, somebody says, oh, well, the officer assaulted me. Okay, let's look at it. And you show the video. And if on the video it gives you a clear indication that the officer did absolutely nothing, that person's not going to pursue this in court. So the $20,000 that we're spending, we might be saving $20,000 in legal obligations that we have by people claiming that they've been assaulted, or the officer claiming that he has been assaulted. And you can just play it back. That in itself, I think, is going to pay for itself. So it is an expenditure, but it's an expenditure that will basically filter through and pay for itself. And it's a one-time thing.
Let's, Christina, we're supposed to only have one public comment, so we'll get you up super quick.
Yeah, I don't disagree, I don't disagree with Chief Hutchins. I know it's a difficult decision to make that decision. Well, my question is, will the officer have the capability in certain situations to erase some of the recording? If it doesn't suit his or her purposes?
No, no.
Because
The whole point
it's
of- the
happened
whole
in
point
other
of that is-
countries, you know?
The whole point of that is that the redaction or removal of video by an officer
It's not legal, right?
would not be permitted, number one.
Right.
They would not have the permissions to do that on their cameras. If they did, it would be a violation of policy, and in my opinion, in all likelihood, be a terminable offense in most
Yes.
cases.
Oh, yeah.
The idea is.
The residents need to know that
The idea,
also.
the idea is that we control the video as a town. And I say we, because we control the video as a town. We control the evidence. If the officer acts inappropriately, okay, or a citizen acts inappropriately, it really doesn't matter. There's a record of it. And there needs to be that record. And an officer being able to erase their video is
An offense.
completely against all of my ethical and moral.
Yeah, but you're not saying it can't happen.
I'm
That's
saying
not
that
what
if
I'm
it,
hearing.
I'm saying that if it does, there is on the system that I would recommend, there is a program
Redundancy.
that tells you,
Right,
there is a
that's what I would
program that tells you that they did, and that would be a violation, or that it was not
Or-
uploaded properly, or that they didn't record a situation when they were supposed to, and those are all disciplinary issues which I deal with on a regular basis when people don't do as they're
And
supposed to
who has
anyway.
access to looking at the recordings?
So, to look at the recordings, the officer would have the ability to review their own recording. A supervisor would be able to review the recording, and the two lieutenants and myself, if it's set up the way that I
Well,
anticipate,
not even the town manager.
would have the ability to look at the recordings. If the town manager wished to look at the recordings, then they would have to let us know, because there are certain things on those recordings which are protected that the general public doesn't have opportunity to look at. It's not, you can make a public records request, and then we would go back and redact the things by innocent third parties that don't have anything to do with it. Certain situations where you go into medical facilities and you're doing an interview, those things, there are guidelines for use of that Mr. Lauer perhaps could speak to some of that. He makes public records requests as a member of the press, and just because you make the records request doesn't mean you're entitled to that completely private portion of the tape. It's not erased, it's just you can't see it. So I would like to be as transparent as I possibly can with you, and with everybody in this community. And it's come to the point where this has come up more than once, been directed by a former mayor, been asked for by citizens, been asked for by officers, and I just feel it's necessary to bring it to you. And I apologize that you have to make this tough decision. I think you're the only ones that can.
Okay, I want to end on a happy
Yeah,
note.
quick,
We need
yeah.
happy notes, I know. Okay, let's make the best decision for all the residents and for the police department. I had a couple of minor glitches in my house about a week ago. I was embarrassed to call the police office, the police department. late in the evening because I don't like to bother people. But I have to commend 2 officers that came, and I was embarrassed about the glitch that happened that was, piddly compared to other things. But I don't remember their last names, but Officer Aaron, nice young man, helped me out. I think he spent 30 minutes in my house dealing with a glitch, which I appreciated. Of course, my husband were around, I wouldn't be calling, right? And then afterwards, another silly glitch that happened with my car, Officer Mario. They were really wonderful officers, and I was very thankful that they spent, half an hour in my house fixing what needed to be fixed, because late in the evening, I had nobody else to call. So,
Thank you, Christine.
On a
Yes.
happy note, I don't.
So she's
Yeah, stay away
referring,
from the
she's
sad
referring,
notes.
she's referring to Officer Chauvin and Officer Galucio. I will pass that on. And,
We gotta move on.
and the most important thing that she just said to me is that we had the time to do that, and it doesn't matter what time of day or night, it's never a bother, ever. Okay, and it can't be.
I'm very respectful about the officer's time,
Okay, so item number 13 is $20,000 for body worn cameras. The question is whether to approve it through round 1 or not.
Can I ask one more question?
Yep.
How many times since you've been chief, and if you know any history of prior chiefs, that a camera would have made a change in the situation?
That would be a guess, obviously. Probably an educated one. Off the top of my head, in the last 3 months, I can think of 5 complaints that have come directly to me, that had the officers been wearing a body-worn camera, I would have been able to definitively say yes or no, and it would not have been a perception issue. He said, she said, whatever you want to call it. It would have been very clear, and I would have been able to save a lot of aggravation on the part of the resident who felt that they were wrong, or at least reported that, and I would have been able to get a definitive answer, because all I have is what this person says and this person says. The middle comes with, if there is something to prove it, then I can tell you whether that officer acted appropriately or inappropriately. That's most recent. I think that we go back further, and I think that there are some times when we have made some arrests, and I can tell you that for the last 37 and a half years, okay, there are times when I've been involved in arrests where I wish I had a camera. I fought in-car cameras. I was responsible for initiating that program in the town of Palm Beach. I fought it tooth and nail. My boss said implement it. I did. It saved a police officer not only his job, but his marriage and his livelihood forever and ever against a false accusation by an arrestee. It was cleared up in 2 minutes by putting a video and saying the report could not have possibly happened. So
All right.
that's enough for me to say that it's worth it.
Okay, so we know the pros and cons of this. We know we're in a tight budget. Do I hear?
I move that we choose to move to the next round body-worn camera system at $19,956. The only thing that I would add to the caveat is that the commission has the responsibility and the authority to look at what triggers a camera
And access to recordings and troubles.
and access to recordings.
So to develop the policy regarding the cameras.
Correct.
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those in, not in
All
favor
opposed.
signify by saying nay. Nay.
I'm going to agree to the body cameras, although I personally don't agree with it for a number of reasons that Christine stated. But in talking to the residents and the police officers a lot, I know that all the residents I've talked to and all the police officers that I've talked to are in favor of the body camera.
So what's your vote?
For those reasons, I approve the motion.
So I don't know what the vote is at this point. Is it 4-1, 3-2? What is it?
Let's do a roll call.
Yeah.
All those in favor? Susan?
Aye.
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 Okay, and all those opposed?
Nay. And to Don's, I just want to add a little comment. Every citizen, not every, but 90% of citizens I've spoken to, and 100% of the policemen I've spoken to do not want it. So,
Isn't that
it's
strange?
two sides to the coin. Okay, let's move on.
Same for your sons.
I have no idea. I was
It's
talking
always
golf.
how you ask a question, right? You don't want the cameras, do you?
My son did that with dinner, you don't want me to save the good.
Okay, it's on to round number 14 here. Town Hall AC units, 1,500. Town Commission approved. Tracy has moved this to a,
The town commission approved 1 unit instead of 2.
right, so what do you ask us to do here, Tracy?
Nothing. If you're good, then move on.
What, leave it at 15?
No,
leave it at
it's
75.
75. 75.
Okay. Anna Street runoff repairs,
Yay.
take it off.
Withdrawn.
It's been withdrawn.
We took it off.
Oh,
We found a cure.
yeah. By the way, the
This isn't
citizens
the-
love that path, and it's not draining down to the street, and the Bougainville runoff is disappearing.
So we're gonna rock the area, if that's okay with you all.
You
We have
mean-
money in this year's budget to do so.
Like the cuspy thing,
Just
like the
put
beachwood?
some rock in there, rock.
Perfect.
That looks like the same rock on the other side of the road, so that it'll look like we planned it. That should keep it stabilized.
At the same time, can we reach out to the owner and ask for a swale in the front yard? I mean, I love the idea of the rock, but that's not gonna fix it 100%.
We can be a little more diligent with that, but every time I've asked them to do that, they don't wanna do it.
So we've asked.
Yeah, we ask all the time if they would sign a swale agreement. Can't force them to sign a swale agreement on A1A, because it's not our road. We make them sign a swale agreement where the right-of-way, where it's our road and there's sufficient right-of-way. They have to sign a swale agreement if it's new construction.
I'd like
Yeah.
to see, I just can't imagine that somebody not wanting to be a good citizen. I mean, if they're here more than 3 days a month, they know that in front of their house is a nuisance to the entire town.
You know, I just thought of something, because you all are implementing this architectural review, we can ask planning and zoning, that when these new projects come up along A1A, that's one of the things that we can request,
Is the
that
soil-
board can request. We can request all day long,
Right.
and if it's not in the code, even if it's in the code, they find a way to work around it, and so that might be an idea.
Okay.
See, if planning and
It's
zoning
noted.
can,
Yeah.
though that architectural review board can make that suggestion when they come up here on concept review. Is that-
Suggested
You got that,
guideline.
got that down, Wayne?
Yeah, he's listening.
Okay, we're on to 16. New equipped police vehicle. I would note the last sentence. Should a mid-year review indicate the purchase of a replacement vehicle within the cycle be unnecessary, the expenditure will be removed. So I guess you're putting this in the same category as your $7,000 ATV. You're hoping not to need it, but you might need it, or you need it, but you're hoping not to need it.
Say what?
I hope we don't have to buy anything.
Right.
But I think that we need to have it. I think it's the responsible thing to do to budget for it.
Have we not in the past gotten 3 years out of a vehicle versus 2? And what was the trade-off in terms of additional maintenance that it
We
may
have
have
been
cost
keeping
us?
our vehicles for 3 years.
Okay, so is this a rotation of a 3-year or a 4-year?
A 3-year, coming up on a 3-year vehicle. We were scheduled for 2 this year. We received a donation of 1, so we've taken that second one out. This is our standard rotation. We are trying to extend the life of them out. It's unfortunate that our warranties are 5 years, 75,000, and we never make it to 5 years except on the administrative vehicles. And then we keep them as long as we can. The regular patrol vehicles, based upon the number of hours and miles we drive, generally 3 years, we hit about 75,000. Historically, that's when our major repairs start to come. And even though we buy the extended warranty, once we eclipse that extended warranty, our repairs are generally $4,000 or $5,000 a piece, and the return on investment that is not worth.
Well, how much is the extended warranty? I'm not picking on you, I'm just trying to figure out dollars to cents, you
It's
keep, you know, to your point.
$25 or
$50,000
$2,800,
is
I
a
believe,
hit
that we're
on the
paying,
budget.
we're paying now to get that extended warranty, to get these vehicles to 3 years, so that we have that powertrain warranty. We already purchased that, that newly equipped police vehicle would include that extended warranty. If we don't get the extended warranty, it's 12 months, 12,000 miles
Right.
for commercial duty vehicles.
Yeah, but your extended warranty is powertrain, not bumper to bumper.
It is bumper to bumper 12-month and powertrain for the rest, and the major cost that
So I
we
think what
find.
perhaps you're asking is, how much it costs for bumper to bumper for 3 years? Is that what you're? Or you can't?
We don't have a problem in the 3 years. It's when we hit that 75,000 mile mark, which is about the 3-year mark for us, that we start to see.
So I guess my
extreme
question is,
maintenance costs.
do we have any of the data that shows between year 3 and 4, have we kept cars that long, and what was the incremental cost for that?
I have one in the back
Mhm.
that we have kept more than 3 years, and it's sidelined right now. Hopefully, they will come and take it as a trade, which we wanted them to do for our new cars that we have not received yet. Because if that weren't the case, we would be putting about $4,000 into the master braking system, plus $2,500 into air conditioning today to keep it on the road.
And the extended warranty.
And the extended warranty is out.
But if you took another one, so that's another 2,500.
And so that would be,
So we're at 8,000.
so in order to put that one back on the road and it's at end of life, basically, would be another 8,000. So
So
for
if,
the town's purposes,
okay, but that's 6 new vehicles. If we did that 8 times over with our fleet, that's equal to 1 new vehicle. If we did, if we did the 8,000 for 6 vehicles, equals $48,000 versus 1 new vehicle. So I'm just saying, is there a way for us to
Okay, so every
extend this
time-
3-year to 4-year?
and I went through this about 3 years ago with another commission, and I explained the same thing. If that vehicle goes in for repair, and this one's waiting to be traded, so obviously, we're not going to take it in, but if we go to bare bones, which was what we had when I started as an officer here, and we lose a vehicle for 3 to 5 weeks, we don't have the ability to patrol with that vehicle. If we lose a second one, we're at critical mass. If we have a significant natural disaster this year, perhaps a hurricane, or even some significant flooding or something that happens in Boynton that provides us with the necessity to implement some emergency procedures, I need all of the vehicles that I have to patrol the town, to man checkpoints. And as you know, we're getting ready to hopefully take on a little bit more. And if we do that, I don't want to be in a position where we are equipment shy and can't meet that contract either. I think we have I feel like I have a contract with you folks to provide the best service I can. My recommendation is based upon my experience here and elsewhere with fleet maintenance. And this is what makes sense to me. If we don't need to spend the money and I can get it through to 2021, I will certainly do the best I can. We don't like to change out cars. It's labor intensive as far as we have to take cars out of service. We have to get them to places. We have to use our people to do that. So as less
Okay.
often as we have to, the better we are.
So, does any other commissioner have discussion points on this, any public discussion? What do you want to do here? Do we need to have a little vote, final vote pending? Do we hear a motion to buy a new equipped police vehicle, or put a new equipped police vehicle for $48,000 in the FY 2020 budget? Motion?
I'll move.
I'll second it.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those against?
Can I pull a Don?
You're supposed to pull a gun before you vote.
I didn't vote. The last reason that you stated was the one that I would give the most merit to. If we have an obligation to help another municipality in their services, I would be 100% supportive of this. And I know that I can't make my yes a contingency vote, but if I could, that's what I would do. Yes.
Okay, it was unanimous.
Yes, it was.
Unanimous C.
With clarification.
All right, number 17 has been shelved. Number 18, next, street sign replacement is number 19. I would suggest we just cut that in half. Is there a compelling reason not to?
Can we just get rid of it?
Well, one of the
If it's a
things,
low
one of the
priority.
things that it was gonna include was some beach signage, so we had some consistency in terms of private property and stuff like that. So I would prefer not to see that portion of it cut if
You
we,
mean the
if we
fade,
could.
is that what you're talking?
No, I'm talking about, Mrs. Lundquist has
Right.
talked about for a very long time, something at the inlet, something at Hammock Park, something at
Well,
Ocean.
the signs cost $300 installed, and if you ordered 4 at once, the guy would probably knock the price down to $250 per. So,
You're saying instead of cutting completely, there's some signs we need.
yeah.
Yes.
Are these
Can I
signs
make sure
going
that
on?
we clarify which type of sign, because are you talking about the small signs?
Wood signs,
Three
not-
twenty?
The wooden signs.
Okay, and I
18
believe she
18 by 18.
she referenced Miss
She's talking about
Lundquist's
special
request,
signage.
and those probably will be more, just
Why would those be more?
There'll be a bigger sign.
what she has
More
requested
wording.
over the years is much more elaborate than just a,
Now, let me ask a question, because we're in the problem, we're got this mandate on size of signage. So how is that going to affect Ms. Lindquist's beach signs? And I'm in favor of getting some signs that say no dogs and so on and so forth, but
government and regulatory
we get into the
signs.
size problem.
Government
We don't have to abide by.
and regulatory
anything
signs are
that we
exempt from
Right.
that particular
The
code.
what, Chief?
So,
Government and regulatory signs are exempt from that particular code.
These wouldn't have to follow our new sign
Cool.
code.
Okay.
okay, so we have some people, does anybody want to spend $13,000?
The point is, can we get by with less if we're looking
Correct.
to trim someplace, correct?
So I'm suggesting cutting it in half, and then after Phil's book, I was suggesting we can even go lower. Yes.
I would also make sure that you are remembering that this includes street signs that fail and that need replacement, such as your street sign, Adams and Beachway, stop, speed,
that's
no
what-
parking, and we have a considerable amount of those signs in deteriorating conditions that were maintained, much like fire hydrants.
So that's my
And a lot of
question,
these
what
just
would
need
that cost?
I think we have an extra, a different line item for that particular. This is just for the street signs, chief.
So those are, street signs are,
This is for a replacement for street signs.
Would be-
So is it a definition issue? How are you defining street signs? Because I'm defining street
It's the
sign as
named
the blue
streets.
and beige signs around town.
The name
name of
of
the
streets, the name of the street.
Okay, so we can whack this even further then.
Not beach signs, Tracy?
so I would
Street signs.
caution you to whack it any further. We have put this item off for replacement of street signs many, many years in a row. If you look at some of the street signs, you'll notice that they have plastic sleeves to hold them up. You'll notice that some of them are rather low. Some of them are not as where they used to be because we have piecemeal fixing them. The age of those signs, they were put in well over 14 years ago, I believe, or exactly 14 years ago. They are starting to fail because of their construction, so they're being,
But remember, we always have contingency if it gets.
okay, I just want you to be aware that that's.
Well,
So what's a fair sum?
The other point that we talked about in changing the street signs was, well, funding for the street signs was that we wanted to keep the quality of the town layout and whatnot similar to what it is now, because if we didn't replace the signs with like signs, then we can go to something much cheaper, which would be the metal signs
No,
on
we're
the,
not.
on the, on the
We're not
posts.
We're staying with the beige and
So
blue.
that's what the 13, that's why the 13 is there, is because that's what it's gonna cost to replace. the
So
signs
we
with
don't
light
spend a
bulbs.
ton of time continuing. I would say, can we cut this to 5,000, and then if we get into a issue, we always have a contingency fund that hopefully we can hit. That sound reasonable?
Yes, and just for clarification too, we talked about it earlier, your street sign maintenance, your regular street sign maintenance, your stop signs, your posts, your repairs, everything, we have 15,000 in the regular budget for that.
Okay,
So this is
That's
above and beyond.
crazy.
So,
okay, so we have,
So
we
this
have
is
some-
addition, this is for these street names.
Right.
Have they been being maintained?
How do you maintain?
Well, they will start to be
Scored
maintained.
them
Well, that's what it says, 5 years.
That's what we're
Right,
trying to do
for 5-year
now.
replacement
I've got a
program.
yield
That's what we're
sign
trying to
for
do
what
now, yeah.
No, there's
Peter,
no-
that's what it is.
Okay, I'm
So-
suggesting 5,000, I'll go lower. Does any other commissioner have any thoughts on a number here?
Tracy, what do you think about trimming this 13,000? What would be a reasonable suggestion? You know what we have to replace, even though it's on this 5-year, and maintain, so.
Wayne,
Wayne,
actually, Billy knows
Three,
better than
yeah.
any of us which ones need to be replaced.
just so we don't undercut, or, like you said, throw in more than we need.
Why don't we do what we've done with several of the others, so turn it over to the staff and have them come back with
A number.
a reasonable estimate.
I'll get back.
Because
Perfect.
we know it's gonna
Right?
be higher than we wanna spend.
I'll take into consideration, try and please cut the number in half.
Right, exactly,
Excuse me?
I'll try to cut the number in half.
right, they'll try.
Okay, so we'll send
But
that
at least
back
we'll
to
get
the
some
So let
staff
you know what,
for further
what it can
consideration.
get covered.
What we can cover for that,
For that
and then
money.
see what we might need more,
And then go
take a
from
look
there.
at it. I think that's reasonable.
15.
Okay, maintenance of the town facility. Tracy? Anything you wanna
Which
say on this?
one's maintenance of town facilities? So this is to put money into your capital fund so that when you need a new roof on town hall, when you need town hall painted, this is putting money aside so that you'll grow your capital fund, so you'll have the money to do it in your budget as opposed to going out for a loan to do such things.
Any commissioner have any comments, any public?
Well, the whole thing is gonna be a hurtful process, but we had a lot of situations that came up that are gonna just give us a larger budget.
Yep.
So if we weren't in that position, we'd be looking at this saying, yes, absolutely. So I think we should still consider all these putting aside for the bigger picture.
Does anybody disagree with Susan?
Well, I mean, couldn't we, if something does happen, could we pull it out of the reserve? When we
Well,
want to?
it's
The
not-
following budget?
It's not if it's going to happen, you know that
Yeah,
a
when.
roof on town hall is only going to be good for a certain number of years. Town hall was built in 2008. So by what,
We're
it's
right
good for
around there
30
for-
years, maybe,
yeah, right.
maybe,
Continual
in Saltaire,
leakage in the
maybe
middle
less.
anyways.
Right.
Oops, lasted 25 years.
We've already seen deterioration
No,
of
they
the
don't.
town hall
Yeah,
roof
no,
and
they
had to do emergency repairs
Right.
more than 3 times.
Right.
We have leaks in the front foyer every time
Yeah.
it rains.
It's not gonna get any better, and it's not gonna get any less expensive either when you get to the
I think
end.
conceptually, the way to look at it, and you're right, dead on, you're both dead on, is, you know, we've spent a lot of time being reactionary. We've all talked on the dais at a different point about being more conscientious in planning. We've had staff put together a 5-year plan and take a look at all of our facilities and say, rather than on the back end, having to do it and scramble and find the money, let's be proactive in planning for it. So I think conceptually, we need to just agree, are we in for a 5-year plan? Unfortunately, to your point, it's falling on a year that's a
I know.
tight, you know, a big ticket year to begin with, but I also think if we don't start it, at some point,
That's right.
you know, we just keep, you know, we keep talking about the can being kicked down the road with no, you know, with no blame to any particular person or any particular commission, but
Time to stop.
Okay,
time to stop.
do we have any other comments on number 20?
Well, what about the warranty on this roof? So you're saying this roof is 11 years old and it's had all these problems over this time? Isn't there at least a 10-year warranty on this roof?
My
Not that I'm aware
understanding
of,
and
no.
the direction that I've
5
heard,
years.
the roofer is
Oh,
noted as
5 years?
5 years, and it is a commercial or a
Exactly.
public building, and therefore it is not covered like your.
Wow. By the way, as a homeowner, you can push it to 7 years. But that's it.
And we're past
So
the
we're
7,
still
and
way
it's a
past
commercial
that.
building, so it's a different.
Right.
Okay, so is it, leave number 20 in the budget first round? Okay.
That's what I think.
Beach crossover repair, 15,000. Does your simple solution at Anna Street end some of this problem? When you were talking about your rocks, are you talking down in A1A? Or are you talking all the way up to the beach pad?
We were just talking about where the Bougainvillea,
Just along the
yeah,
Bougainvilleas?
just
Okay.
along the wall.
Is it worth continuing that rock across the threshold of the Anna pad?
It's just at the front half just to stabilize it, that'll be necessary not to go past the ridge, it doesn't need to go beyond that.
Yeah, just the.
Just that lower level, that's
it.
it, that's the extent of it.
Yeah,
The rest
okay.
of the stabilization that we're referring to and the repair would be like a Thompson and Corinne, those crossovers, where repairs of the decking is needed to maintain that, so it doesn't become trip hazards and so on and so forth. The wood needs to be replaced.
Yeah, Corinne's a mess. Is Thompson?
So,
Thompson's
It says
more involved.
Porter
But I
Street's
thought we were talking
priority.
about Porter Street. yeah.
Porter.
Yes, Porter Street you determined was the priority for FY
yeah,
'20.
Porter,
I thought Porter, the complaint was that there were screws that were coming out.
So that's
Cool.
the maintenance issue
Yeah.
with Porter Street, is that it needs to be maintained so that it can stay in its natural state
So-
as it is.
I'm lost a little bit. So what are we spending this money on? The end street's gonna take virtually no money. Careen is a total disaster. That's the slats that are shredded.
yeah. So that's the crossovers that we're referring to. 15.
Careen,
Yeah.
Porter, and Thompson. Okay. Anybody got any issues here?
Well, okay, so we're talking about 3 streets, not that it just says Porter Street. So somewhere else it says Corinne, or is this we're putting a fund together for
We're
all
doing-
3 streets?
We're trying to do all of them.
Right, it says
We're
be
trying to
part
So
of
for
the
15 grand, so like
prioritize-
5 grand a
Yeah.
street, there's 3 streets.
Yeah,
And
but
it
they're
won't
not all of them are not in the same kind of condition.
Right.
Porter is in worse
Some will
condition.
need more than the other.
And
It's
that's what
15
it
for
comes
the
down to,
three of them.
yeah.
So Corinne
Because
is,
some will cost less than 5, and you might
Right.
be able to
Correct.
do
Exactly.
more than you expect to be able to do.
Exactly.
15,000 is what you typically budget every year for your beach crossover
Yeah.
repairs.
Okay.
Nothing's changing.
Okay, good, we're all set there. Number 22, vulnerability study, recommended by Don, Vice Mayor Magruder. We,
Been over
you know
this
my feelings
issue
on this, right?
ad nauseum.
Right.
So, and I put together some information, in your package that talks a little bit more about, I put together a memo. The cute part about the memo was the 1966 Inlet K sales brochure. That was 53 years ago, and then following that, you can look at a picture that I put here that shows that there are seawalls that were of adequate height and whatnot. The water on high tide is over the seawall. So this is something that takes into effect sea level rise and climate change going out 5, 10, and 15 years and coming in and saying, okay, based on the scientific knowledge that we have now using those forecasts, that for $23,000 we can join in with an interlocal agreement with 11 other communities to do a vulnerability study for those communities, and that would all be done by the same engineering group and come back using the same statistics, GIS data that we talked about earlier. We've already collected a lot of data. So that we would be going through that. I really recommend that we do this because we would be on the steering committee. I'm on the steering committee now. I'm the only elected official that attends these meetings that's on the steering committee. If we don't get, if we don't sign up now, what we will not have is an ability to participate later. If they come back and do the vulnerability study, we wouldn't be part of that group. And so we wouldn't have that information as far as sea level rise, as far as seawalls, as far as flooding, as far as the tropical storms, temperatures, and so on and so forth. So this is money that we would be spending now that would be actually used in 2020. And then after 2020, we would come back with the study and it would show us what areas of vulnerability we have and how we can build resilience and whatnot for the community going forward in a period of 10, 15, and 20 years. So it's kind of the beginning of a process in order to make Ocean Ridge more resilient and prepared for the future.
Any comments by commissioners, public? Okay, we've.
You have a public.
Oh, good.
Christine Schulte, 7 Adams. I just have a quick question. Is this a yearly fee or a one fee?
This is for
One
the
fee.
vulnerability study
Right.
for 2020.
Yeah.
That's our fee.
For 2020, so it would be a yearly fee then?
No.
No, it's one-time fee.
one-time.
Which makes sense to me, but I wasn't sure. Thank
Well,
you.
for phase one,
Yeah, phase one.
Okay.
and there's 3 phases, isn't
Well,
there?
but it depends on what comes back from the vulnerability. I mean, there may be other components in 21, 22, 23 that we would need to focus on based on the vulnerability study, and we would have a decision at that time, do we want to spend the funds to go forward? Do we want to work with Briny Breezes or Gulfstream or South Palm Beach? Depends on what the study comes back and how we can share those costs.
John, can I ask who the 11 other local municipalities are?
The,
I mean, is it everybody, our neighbors?
They haven't all signed.
That's what I'm asking. Who's in?
so right now, we've got Boynton, Delray, Lantana,
I don't think Lantana did.
Hypoluxo is on the fence, but they're on the intercoastal Ocean Ridge, Gulfstream, Briny Breezes. Was it
So our
South
neighbors,
Palm-
okay,
South
are already
Palm
in,
Beach
they're in.
and,
No, no.
Well,
You said
no,
Ocean Ridge, went in.
Right, right.
Right.
But I assume that.
No,
But the others you mentioned are already committed.
The others are not committed
Oh,
at
okay,
this,
that's my
well,
question. Who's
the
committed?
bigger cities
They're
are
doing
not.
what we're doing here.
They're still in the process of
They're
discussing.
still in the process,
Okay.
and so the presentation
commitment yet.
for Gulfstream is on the 24th, I think, of this month, which I was trying to get Tracy or Wayne to attend, because I'm going to be out of town, so that they can see that. You had a presentation here by Dr. Danchek that came up from Broward. I think, Susan, you were in the District 4 meeting where we talked about it. So I'm not sure where they are right now, but for us, I would like to take the lead position in Ocean Ridge committing to be part of this
Okay.
interlocal agreement.
Yes, Martin?
I agree, and just as a reminder to put history back into place, remember 20 years ago when we hired Lisa to do the sewers, and then the hurricane happened, and I understand we're in a crisis budget basically, where we're really going to the limits, but this is one of those things where we should not slack and just, try to see if we can do this the next year. This is an expenditure that I think is very much necessary.
Thanks. Any commissioner comment? So, my opinion on this is we've already been doing a vulnerability study for 20 years. We have Lisa, we have our engineering firm. We have paid the engineering firm to analyze our drainage. We've paid them to look at the vulnerable areas in town. They've already done this on a continuing basis and an increased basis in the last 2 years. We also have a need for sewers to be implemented, which is part of any rising sea level is going to cause sewer seepage. We're woefully behind on that. I'm not a fan of doing this. I also don't believe, number one, we don't know how many communities are involved. There's very few of the 11. And number two, do we really think that a group is going to have data and if we get a serious sea rise problem, that data is not going to be shared on a state or federal level? I think a lot of this work is already out there. It's already in progress at much higher municipal levels than us, and I just don't think we need to spend the money. And we've already spent the money and have the knowledge through our town engineer.
Well, I'll take you back to the comprehensive plan when you go into the coastal management element. And what it says there is prior to, some of the stuff is state mandated. I should have marked it, I apologize for not doing that, but it is in the comprehensive plan. The town shall continue to coordinate with the Palm Beach County Comprehensive Emergency Management Plan to achieve a post-disaster redevelopment plan, which is part of this. The town shall adopt and implement policies that increase community resilience and protect property, infrastructure, and cultural and natural resources from the impacts of climate change, including sea level rise, changes in rainfall patterns, and extreme weather events.
Let's go down to Tracy. Okay, do we have any other commissioner comments on it?
The only other thing is when the Broward County lady, Sandra was her name, talked, she said we're kind of at the higher end. So that, you know, Miami's got the problems, Fort Lauderdale has the problems, so we have a little more time than the rest of them. On the flip side, though, is when you get grant money, it's nice, now it's costing you less because you've got supplemental to the total cost. I don't know, Lisa, do you, because I'm still in the process of what are they gonna do more than we already know? And that's where I have the biggest problem, because even though Sandra did a great presentation, I still haven't gotten my arms around what is she gonna come up with that, or the consultants are gonna come up with that we don't really know, or that everybody else is gonna know and we don't have to worry about it for 5 or 6 years down the road, because Lisa, through her engineering, has been taking care of a lot of these problems already.
What Lisa in the Public Works Department is working on right now is what we know are problems. And we can see some of the problems, like the drainage in the detention pond, that it needs to be worked on. But Lisa has not given us any information based on how much the sea level is going to rise over the next 5 or 10 years. She may have that, but we don't have that to work on. We don't know what the climate is going to be like. We don't know what the climate severity of the storms are going to do. We don't know how that's going to affect the dunes. We don't know what the pumping station is doing as far as keeping the beaches full, because right now we're in balance with the pumping station and not having to pump sand in from offshore. So I was just at a meeting with the county where that is balanced out for this year, so we don't need to do that. So there's a lot of scientific information out there that would give us the opportunity to look at what needs to be done in Ocean Ridge. And part of it is the facilities also, where our pumping stations are located, the town hall is located, those types of things. What do we need to do in the future to try and secure that, or make sure that Ocean Ridge is, one, resilient to that and can sustain those types of effects of the weather change and so on and so forth coming down the road. Again, it's not next year. We're looking at 5, 10, and so on and so forth. That brochure that I showed you with the Inlet K, that was 53 years ago. Well, 53 years ago, the seawalls now are not nearly adequate enough. So that's going to be something also. How do you go about making the seawalls in Delray carry all the way down through the coast without some sort of grant planning and so on and so forth? It's going to be larger than just what we can do in Ocean Ridge. So it's kind of working together with the other communities, especially on the barrier islands. So.
And I think that's probably the most important part is A, taking advantage of the grant that's available, and B, the reciprocity of being part of a larger group, that when other grants do come available, because they're gonna have to, I mean, eventually the state of Florida is gonna have to tackle this and not.
Why does it stop us from getting grants if we decide not to?
I'm not saying, I'm saying that this group is
And
already tied in.
Both you and Don are making an excellent point. It's bigger than Ocean Ridge. That's the state of Florida and then the federal level. I'm not saying I'm against what you're saying, I'm just saying to be spending this money to chase down information that is going to be supplied to us when the time is necessary, it just seems like a waste of
Well,
money.
I think the time is necessary was 5 years ago, but that's why I brought up earlier, we had a $12,000 budget line item for last year specifically for this that we did not use. Now, if you had come back and said it was $12,000 again, I would have felt a little bit more comfortable. But the fact of the matter is, I mean, you didn't define the price. I think all, the collectivity of the municipalities define the price. Would it make you more comfortable to agree to something like this if the majority of the 11 municipalities fed into it?
No. I think we're like this tiny town, and when you start talking about how we're gonna prevent town hall from being flooded, how we're gonna prevent A1A, how we're gonna prevent all this around town, if we reach that level, Don, we're not going to be able to do anything about it. So to do a vulnerability study, what we can do is make sure that we are doing everything possible by Ocean Ridge standards to make sure that we weather any weather incidents that are occurring short-term or long-term. And that's where we've been devoting our resources. And I also think we're shortchanging how much information that our engineering firm has given to us, which the town has chosen to ignore for 15 years, about what was needed to be done to stay ahead of this curve. So I don't
Well,
see
that
what.
last statement may be very true, but if Delray unilaterally and Gulfstream and Bryony all decide they, based on their vulnerability assessment, they're raising their seawalls to the height of
Right.
8.5 feet. We do nothing because we're waiting for the state to tell us in the future, and Manalapan does the same thing. Guess what happens? Every time we have a
Christine.
rain event, the water's gonna flood right through Ocean
Are
Ridge.
you
That's-
also
that's
saying that by
illogical.
being part and parcel of, hopefully, everybody else getting involved, that makes the chance of the bigger coalition, so to speak, get the grants and what have you?
Of course, yes, there's obviously strength in numbers.
Okay, just from a common sense standpoint, do you really think that grants are gonna be given to Delray, or let's say Gulfstream and Manalapan, and the county and the state and the feds are gonna say, yeah, we're gonna give them grants and we're gonna leave Ocean Ridge sitting here? That's not gonna happen.
And let's get off the grant, because the grant is putting the cart before the horse. The horse really is, where are your most vulnerable assets? How do you protect them? And you might be very right, we might have that information, but it has never been put together or put forth in a report that defines it in that direction. Because,
I thought you did an update to your 2008 report last year, or this year.
For the stormwater system and the pumping stations.
And we'd also discuss the seawalls, if I remember correctly, no?
The seawalls in town are predominantly private.
Yeah.
When applicants come in and they do major improvements, we have to look at different issues, adjacent properties, but we do request that they come in and make their seawalls higher. They
Right.
come in all the time and request.
And you give us
In
elevation.
areas that are public, which I think is the picture that Don's showing. I believe we put that in the capital projects to have that seawall raised. So, for the most part, the seawalls are not, are private seawalls. It's not like Punta Gorda where that city or the county owns all the seawalls. So when Irma came through, I have friends over there that are still waiting for their seawall to be repaired. And they're gonna do improvements to raise them, but that's because the government owns them. In this case, they're privately owned here, for the most part.
Okay, any other, what?
let's do a vote.
Yeah,
Getting
let's do a
tired.
vote.
My sugar highs are wearing off.
Oh, you had the candy bar, I did too. All right, number 22, vulnerability study, 23,000. The final vote is pending. Does somebody want to make a motion that Town of Ocean Ridge spends $23,000 towards a sea level rise vulnerability study?
I make a motion that the commission approve a $23,000 budget for a vulnerability study to begin in 2020.
For sea level rise.
Well, for vulnerability study, it's much more than just sea level rise. It is an environmental study and so on and so forth. So they're terming it a vulnerability study. So
Yep.
that's my motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed signify by saying nay. Nay?
Nay.
So I think it was 3-2. Okay, so item number 22 passes first round. We're on to item number 23, crosswalk installation. This is the Crown Colony crosswalk. The final vote's pending. Anybody got any comments?
I got, Chief, you're fairly familiar with this. It looks like they're coming out of the main entrance of Crown Colony and going south, and then crossing over, and then coming all the way back north to get to Fayette. Is that the proposal for the 20, or is that with that concrete sidewalk and everything else that needs to be added, and the lights, is that more expensive, or do we have other choices in that crosswalk study?
That's a pure estimate right there. based upon what we paid for this one out here, based upon the traffic engineer's studies recommendation with the flashing lights, with a piece of sidewalk. So my understanding is they would come out at the Crown Colony main entrance, cross the street, and then in order to get to Fayette, there's a small sidewalk that needs to be run toward the north to Fayette.
I didn't think so. I thought it was 160 feet
Yeah.
south of Fayette.
Okay, so the crosswalk would be 160 feet south of Fayette, correct?
Oh, okay, I thought you meant when you said
Okay.
little, it was
So
a
come
few
out,
feet.
so come out of Crown Colony, go across the street and go 160 feet north, okay? If the crosswalk is, so yes, north-south.
But that was, the DOT is the one who
So
said
that was
where
the-
to place them.
Oh,
That was the traffic engineering firm's recommendation based upon the state guidelines. The manager has asked that I push this to DOT. I did. Prior to going on vacation, I sent it to District 4 DOT. It was forwarded to Fort Lauderdale for review. I have yet to hear, other than they received it and they would look at it, I have yet to get comments back. That and just to parlay on this, so you don't have any more, the ICW, no wake zone was forwarded to FWC, who pushed it to the Coast Guard. So we're in the same position, both of them gave me the same thing. Please give us, we won't be able to look at it until the 29th. I said, that's fine, because I didn't expect them to be Johnny on the spot. So we don't even know whether it's approved. We don't know what, if any, changes they may wish to make for this crosswalk. So that is purely a guess. If you wish to go forward, I would recommend that you move forward with it tentatively now and discuss it at our next meeting. Hopefully, I'll be able to get some information back from DOT.
Okay,
I
any other?
Yeah,
decisions or
I have a
points?
comment, and, you know, I hope nobody takes my head off for it. I'm happy to push it through, and I actually am in favor of it, although I think it's a ridiculous amount of money, but that's not ours to choose one way or the other. My question, and I haven't been able to get a solid answer, is what is the ownership of that private little walkway at the end of Fayette that leads to Old Ocean, and are we encouraging some residents to use a section of something that is not deeded to them? And I bring it up as a question, because we don't want to put ourselves in a
Aren't we
weird
looking into it?
liability either.
Yeah, Tracy's
Yeah.
looking into it because I asked the same
But
question.
I don't want to
No,
make
no.
a final decision without that.
Right.
Right, I said the same thing.
Okay, does anyone talk to the town attorney? It's been very specific on this. Stay out of private property matters. The town is not going to
So,
intrude.
so
into a
I
private
understand your concerns. I've expressed the same concerns based upon the history that I've had down in that area. I'm not recommending that you approve this today. I'm recommending that you kick the can down the road until we have some additional information.
Well,
But
could
Yeah,
not
we don't
to-
even know if it's approved by DOT yet.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Well-
We don't even know whether DOT is going to
But
approve
that's
it. And then
illogical,
at that point,
because if we don't approve it, it doesn't make first round.
I'm
So,
saying-
see, we need to know how much money
push it
we're
to,
spending.
I think you have time to
Right.
push it to your
You're
next
gonna
round
prove
until you
it
have the
another
information.
meeting.
You know what I'm saying? Once things are up first round, they're kind of gone.
They don't have to be
No,
right to
that's
the
what
next
I said.
meeting.
I said I'm happy to
Right,
do
I
it,
agree
but
with
I
your
mean,
method.
it's got to be addressed
Okay, so do
before
we
we
hear a motion on
finalize.
number 23, crosswalk, spend $20,000 on the crosswalk installation across North Ocean Boulevard. We're approving it pending the police chief coming back to us with the final DOT recommendation of placement, approval and recommendation of placement. Does somebody want to say so moved?
I would say, and I need to know, I'm not getting in
Ownership.
people's business, but as a municipality, we are not, I don't think it is prudent for us to at least not have the knowledge of what is happening before we expend town-wide funds.
So you want to amend the motion to say pending, which the lawyer doesn't want us to do, pending property issues, how's that?
Pending at least knowledge, I mean, final knowledge on.
You're into a whole area of law of customary use, adverse possession.
But we need to know that. Don't we need to know that? Right, we need to know. There's an answer somewhere to be
No,
had here.
there-
Let's get to the answer. I'm sure Brian would not say, don't go looking. Well, Lisa's not so sure.
Brian has
I believe
specifically
this is-
said it's a
I-
private property.
I believe
issue,
that
kind
the
of.
suggestion has been, and I hate to speak for the town attorney because I want to speak on his behalf, but I believe that the question coming before you was, we want this and we have this right, and I believe that the request will be to Crown Colony, who's requested the crosswalk. Then can you show us that you have the right to
we
use
talked
that
about that,
particular
yes.
area? And that the town would not incur any additional cost in
Right.
trying to go through title
Show us
searches
you
and
own it.
things.
Right.
That's not,
If
Correct.
DOT were to even allow us to
Go
go
forward,
forward.
if we went forward.
so, can we just make a simple motion? To, everyone understands your concerns are on record. So a simple motion that that crosswalk installation at $20,000 North Ocean Boulevard, proposed to pass round one,
Pending other
pending
issue.
further information,
There you go.
okay? So,
Got it.
So moved.
okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Wow. Okay.
Sorry.
24, sewer conversion.
We have no information on anything yet for this, so I would put that on hold still.
Okay, very good.
Yep.
Salary survey and investment in personnel. price to
Same
be
thing, keep it on hold until next meeting.
EMT withdrawn. By the way, if the Briney thing comes down, that might also, impact EMT.
Well, that's the one positive thing in this budget.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Okay, Tracy, am I missing anything?
Nope,
Do we need to go through all these, or are we kind of
no,
done?
I think you're pretty much done.
Okay, super. Any last comments?
I was gonna say, do you wanna open it up for public comment though
Any
before you
last
end?
public comments?
And
Okay.
I just want to
Whoops, we
reiterate
get
staff,
you.
thank you. I mean, you guys
Yeah,
really went
I
above
love
and
your, I
Great
call them cheat
presentation.
sheets. Your elementary school
Excellent.
sheets, they're wonderful.
Oh, public thought.
Jerry Lauer, Harbor Drive. Congratulations to Tracy for making a budget presentation that is understandable. And I know that typically you all feel compelled to have a no tax increase budget year. You have enough things on the table that are solving sins of the past for lack of maintenance. I would encourage you to not feel so compelled to hold it to the exact dime, but instead to deliver a budget that serves the need of the community, even if that means a small increase in taxes. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. Okay, on that note, meeting adjourned.
Thank you all.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Tracy.
Thank you.
Tracy, that was just so easy to follow.
That was the goal. I tried to answer questions before they came up. That was the goal.
Good job.
Did you say yes? Yes.
The problem is, let's say you'd say, we're spending $2,000 on a crosswalk. Well, it's not really for the crosswalk. It's for the